Chapter 1003. Long Chen would never have thought that Zhuge Ziyun's violation of the agreement was caused by the person who planted the ghost python. And it was a woman. Elder Jin promised that he would reconstruct the bodies of the immeasurable emperor and Juzan Dizuan within 3 days and ensure their safety within the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. Elder Jin pointed out a path for Long Chen and promised that he would send the immeasurable emperor and Juzan Dizuan to find him in 3 days. Long Chen left the Zhuge Forbidden God clan the next day. The day he left the Zhuge Forbidden God clan, Long Chen only walked for a few hours before he felt that someone was following him. With the Emperor's remnant soul, he easily shook them off. Zhongtian City. The Zhuge Forbidden God clan's subsidiary city. This was the place that Elder Jin pointed out to Long Chen. Long Chen found a restaurant and stayed there. For the past 3 days, he sat by the window of the restaurant and used the Emperor's remnant soul to spy on others. In these 3 days, he had gained a better understanding of the central continent. The Zhuge Forbidden God clan was called the Forbidden God Grotto Heaven. There were a total of 32 such grotto heavens. Every paradise force was a Tianyuan divine clan, and there were plenty of God King experts in the clan. Most of the paradise forces once had God Emperor realm experts, and their foundations were limitless. After the 32 grotto heavens, there were 16 blessed lands. These 16 blessed lands were located at the center of Zhongzhou. They were so powerful that even the 32 grotto heavens were afraid of them. Other than the 32 grotto heavens and 16 blessed lands, there were a few other supreme grotto heavens and blessed lands. The Heavenswell Palace was one of them. There was another piece of news that caused Long Chen to smile uncontrollably. Within Zhongzhou, there was a sword cultivator who rose to fame and was once invited by the 32 grotto heavens. Now, he even stepped into the blessed lands of Zhongzhou. This person's name was Jian Shan. Within 3 days. Long Chen heard this name more than 10 times. This person rose like a comet from the 9 States Spirit Mountain realm and stepped into the 9 States Grotto Heavens area without passing the palace examination. Wherever he went, a long sword shook the world. Any sword cultivator with some reputation was defeated by his sword. The most shocking thing about him was his cultivation. No one could tell what his cultivation level was. Many of the almighty figures in the blessed enclave even believed that it was not a human, but a sword spirit formed by heaven and earth. Therefore, there was no difference in cultivation level at all. As long as one's sword Dao was stronger, one's combat prowess would increase accordingly. The path of the sword has no crown. The path that one pursues throughout one's life will eventually stand above the firmament. Long Chen could not help but murmur. As he spoke, Long Chen was also somewhat envious of this former disciple of his. In Jian Shan's eyes, perhaps nothing in the world was important. Only simplicity was the eternal truth. The wine was extremely strong as it entered his throat. Long Chen didn't know why, but he became more and more clear about the Tao in his heart. Extreme to love, extreme to the heart, all for the sake of a clear thought. Noon. Long Chen was still sitting on the windowsill that had turned into a wine table. He saw the immeasurable emperor and Juzan Dizuan enter the city. The immeasurable emperor's gaze immediately fell on where Long Chen was. He seemed to know that Long Chen was here. The two of them rushed into the restaurant with anxious looks on their faces. They only looked better when they saw Long Chen. Long Chen frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Why are you so anxious? Are there people following the two of you?" The immeasurable emperor nodded. Long Chen looked at him and knew that the people following them must be within the range that he could deal with. Otherwise, this guy would not be so confident. The immeasurable emperor replied, 3 second-tier divine kings. It shouldn't be a problem for you, right? Long Chen could not help but laugh. Before he could finish laughing, 2 middle-aged men walked in. As soon as the two of them walked into the restaurant, everyone in the restaurant felt that everyone's gaze fell on them. The two of them had Tao patterns all over their clothes, and the shape of a feather fan and a silk scarf was outlined on their backs. This was the symbol of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. It was said that this picture represented the two most powerful heavenly source celestial devices of the Juga Forbidden God clan. They were also the most important treasures of the clan. Get out! As soon as the two of them came in, the leader shouted. The restaurant was suddenly empty, leaving only Long Chen and the other two. You are Long Chen? A middle-aged man with a long face and no beard took the lead and came forward to ask Long Chen. The corners of Long Chen's mouth curled into a smile as he said, "Why are you asking when you already know the answer?" The two of them looked at each other and a cold smile appeared on their faces. However, they did not attack. Instead, they slowly walked to Long Chen and sat down. The middle-aged man with a long face and no beard said, "We don't dare to touch you in Zhongtian City, but we want to give you two choices. First, kill yourself here and destroy your hands, feet, and tongue. This is a way to survive. Second, come with us to the Ghost Python Paradise." As the two of them finished speaking, there was a faint sneer on their faces. In their opinion, Long Chen had no choice at all. The second choice seemed to have more vitality than the first, but in fact, it was certain death. If Long Chen went to the Ghost Python Paradise, he would probably end up in an even more miserable state. As soon as they finished speaking, Long Chen replied, "I can't accept the first choice. Please come with me to the Ghost Python Paradise." The two of them looked at Long Chen like idiots and sneered, "Then let's go. We can leave this place now." As soon as the two of them turned around, Long Chen's right hand suddenly grabbed at the air and pressed down on one of them. Whoosh! Divine power suddenly surged from this person's body. The violet power collided with Long Chen's brilliance, emitting terrifying shock waves. Battle technique, Ancient Sacred Dragon God Transformation. Before the two of them could turn around, Long Chen attacked again. The power of his fists was as vast as the sea and it increased exponentially. Rumble. The person who was attacked by Long Chen finally turned around. However, half of his body had been crushed by Long Chen. Everyone in the surroundings looked towards this place from afar, and their expressions changed in shock. Who is this person? How dare he attack the Juga Forbidden God clan here? The city master of Zhongtian City once said that no one is allowed to fight in the city, including the Forbidden God clan. Doesn't this guy know that? What terrifying fighting power! This person's divine power origin is only at level 1 Divine King, but he can completely crush a level 2 Divine King. While everyone was shocked, they saw that Long Chen had already pointed his spear at another person. The other level 2 Divine King shook and countless Tao inscriptions appeared around his body and soared into the sky. Waves of tyrannical suppressive force swept over Long Chen's body, and endless killing intent came from all directions. The divine power tide and dozens of origin-killing formations formed out of thin air. Everyone was shocked by the strange power of the Juga Forbidden God clan. Each of the formation Tao inscriptions was mysterious and unpredictable, but they were cast in an instant. Bang! 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 Chapter 1004. Zhongtian City, inside a restaurant. Long Chen attacked the two Zhuge Jinshan clan members without any warning, attracting a lot of attention. Everyone was guessing where he came from, thinking that he must be from the Tianyuan divine clan of a Grotto Heaven force. The strength he displayed was unparalleled. A level 1 Divine King suppressing 2 level 2 Divine King from the Zhuge Jinshan clan, only the direct descendants of the divine clans of the Grotto Heavens could compare with him. Rumble. Following a loud explosion, several restaurants were smashed into pieces. The 2 Divine Kings from the Zhuge Jinshan clan were defeated on the spot. The two of them were in a sorry state, one of them had his body completely shattered. Alright, just you wait. The other person was riddled with holes, but many black runes condensed behind him as he ran away. Long Chen snorted coldly, grabbing the person who was left with only his soul in his hand. Looking at the level 2 Divine King in his hand, he could not help but feel a little more awe-inspiring. Where the Red Moon and the people of Baiyishan were, Long Chen could crush any level 3 Divine King with his level 1 Divine King cultivation. But when it came to the Zhuge Jinshan clan, a God King level 2 could actually escape from him. Moreover, the two of them were not direct descendants of the Zhuge Jinshan clan. Longchen grabbed the person's soul and said in a deep voice, "I'll give you two options. What's the cultivation of the woman from the Ghost Python Grotto Heaven? Is she determined to kill me? Where is Zhuge Ziyun now? The first option is to live. The second option, do you still need me to tell you?" Although the two of them were Divine King experts from the Zhuge Jinshan clan, they obeyed the woman from the Ghost Python Grotto Heaven for some reason. The two of them should know a lot about Zhuge Ziyun's whereabouts and other details. Longchen questioned the person on the street. The killing intent in his words was clearly felt by everyone around. The Divine King's soul was pale, looking around as if he was waiting for someone to come, but no one came. Longchen sneered, "No need to wait, no one will come even if we wait." As soon as he finished speaking, Longchen's divine power surged and was about to rush towards the person's soul. The person's expression changed. He quickly shouted, "Yao Yiji is a level 5 Divine King. She does want to kill you, but the reason is because of the 3 things that our young master promised you. She is engaged to young Master Ziyun. She thinks it's a great humiliation." When Longchen heard this, he was so angry that he laughed and said, "A great humiliation? What a joke! Why didn't I feel humiliated when I saved his life? Where is Zhuge Ziyun now? I want to see if he dares to go against the undying Tao law." The person shook his head and said, "Young Master Ziyun is now in the Ghost Python Paradise. You can't possibly see him." When Longchen heard this, he snorted coldly. Seeing that this person was tactful, he did not make things difficult for him. He had no grudge with the Zhuge Jinshan clan, so there was no need for him to kill this person. Under everyone's gaze, Longchen brought the immeasurable emperor and left towards the city gate. The surrounding people all started to speculate. From Longchen's words, they were able to learn a thing or two about the matter. However, what was even more strange was that the Zhongtian city's city lord had actually allowed Longchen to fight in the city this time. When Longchen was about to leave the city, he met a middle-aged man in a black and gold robe. This person was a late Divine King. He blocked Longchen's path. Longchen seemed to be prepared. He stopped and cupped his fists. "There is chaos in the city today, please forgive us." The middle-aged man in the black and gold robe nodded. He looked at Longchen deeply and said, "Since you know that I won't make things difficult for you, you should know why I'm here. I am indebted to young Master Ziyun. Today, I have been ordered to tell you to leave the heavenly abode as soon as possible. If you have any requests, just let me know." Longchen shook his head and ignored the man's words. Instead, he turned sideways and flew away with the immeasurable emperor and his companion. The man in the long robe frowned deeply. Looking at the back of Longchen, he shook his head and did not stop him. After the 3 of them left Zhongtian City, the immeasurable emperor said to Longchen in a deep voice, "Since you can't stay here, you should think of a way to return to the people of Baiyishan. This poor monk must avenge that Divine King patrolling formation." The moment his words left his mouth, the Juzang Heavenly Lord let out a cold snort and said, "It's all because he took away your Dao ring. Right now, you probably don't have many enchanted artifacts on you, right? However, this person truly deserves to die." Although the Divine King patrolling formation was afraid of Longchen and did not kill him, he was already an enemy and not a friend. The immeasurable emperor's words could be considered a solution. Now that the Divine King of Bone Kill and the Ethereal King were dead, and the Red Moon was no longer an enemy, as long as Longchen returned to the people of Baiyishan, the Divine King patrolling formation would not rashly kill him. Longchen pondered for a moment but did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he took out the jade scroll that Shu San had given him that day. He imprinted all the information in the jade scroll into his mind, and then the jade scroll turned into powder. The jade scroll contained the area where a large number of the Imperial Lord's body parts were located, but there was no specific number. According to the jade scroll, the next time Shu San came, he would bring all the detailed information about the Imperial Lord's body parts with him. Next stop, let's go to the Cloud-Devouring Valley. On the other side, the God King defeated by Longchen was the first to return to his clan. He quickly contacted Yao Yi of the Ghost Python clan. A beautiful figure appeared in front of a bronze mirror. She was extremely beautiful. Does that person still have any illusions? Does he want to rely on those 3 promises to reach the heavens in a single bound? Yao Yeji's voice was extremely cold and filled with disdain. The middle-aged man's face was a little pale. He replied to the beautiful figure in front of him in a deep voice, "We were all defeated by that person, but that person did not show any signs of humility. He is determined to find young Master Ziyun." As the middle-aged man finished speaking, Yao Yeji frowned. She said in a deep voice, "What is Long Chen's cultivation level?" "You were all defeated. Although he is only at the first level of the Divine King realm, his battle prowess is unimaginably strong." The middle-aged man could not help but smile bitterly. Yao Yeji's face darkened. She was very puzzled. She had learned from Zhuge Ziyun that Long Chen was only an Emperor realm venerable when he saved him. How did he become a Divine King now? Find his location. This time, I will personally meet him. As Yao Yeji's cold voice sounded, the beautiful figure in front of the bronze mirror disappeared without a trace. In the Ghost Python Paradise. Chapter 1005. As the young master of the Zhuge Jinshan clan, Zhuge Ziyun lowered himself before Yao Yeji. His gaze towards Yao Yeji was filled with gentleness, a stark contrast to Yao Yeji's cold demeanor. Yao Yeji stared at Zhuge Ziyun and snorted coldly, "You should have heard what your clansman said. The sovereign you spoke of has already become a divine king. It seems like his divine sense that far surpassed a mid-stage divine king wasn't due to his talent. It's very likely that a late-stage divine king's cultivation fell." Yao Yeji's meaning was clear. The higher Long Chen's cultivation was, the more likely it was for him to come into contact with Zhuge Ziyun. This was something she didn't want to see. Zhuge Ziyun remained silent. After a while, he said, "Why do you have to kill him? It's just 3 things. He saved my life." Yao Yeji said coldly, "If he wants you to kill me, what will you do?" Zhuge Ziyun was speechless. In the end, he let out a long sigh and said nothing. On the other side, Long Chen and the other 2 headed straight for the cloud-devouring valley. This place was quite far from the Zhuge Jinshan clan. With their cultivation, it would take them half a month to reach there even if they traveled at full speed. Along the way, Long Chen tried to figure out the other parts of the Sovereign Lord's body in his mind. In the end, he could only shake his head. Apart from the cloud-devouring valley, it was extremely difficult to obtain the other parts of the Sovereign Lord's body. A large number of the Sovereign Lord's body parts had fallen into the hands of the Grotto Heavens and Blessed Lands. 36 Grotto Heavens and 16 Blessed Lands. Perhaps some of them had fallen into the hands of the Heaven's Fate Palace and other transcendent forces. Of course, these were only the Sovereign Lord's body parts that existed in the central state. The chaotic domain below the central state was something Long Chen couldn't touch at all. There were gods born from the chaotic domain, and there were even supreme experts above the Divine Emperor realm. They definitely had the Sovereign Lord's body parts in their hands. The more powerful the force, the more they could use the mysteries of the Sovereign Lord's body parts. Just like the people Long Chen had met before, although they had the Sovereign Lord's body in their hands, there was almost no one who could truly pry into the mystery within. Long Chen shook his head fiercely. He could only take one step at a time and take down the Emperor Master's body in the devouring Cloud Valley first. Now, they could only wait for the next report from Shusan. Although the current information listed the areas where most of the Emperor's body parts were located, it was too rough. With Long Chen's current cultivation level, he was unable to investigate at all. Along the way, the immeasurable Emperor did not smile at all. Having his Dao ring snatched away, it was as if a piece of flesh had been sliced off from his heart. On the contrary, Juzan Dizuan became more talkative along the way. He asked Long Chen for guidance on many cultivation methods, and he did not stop cultivating almost every day. More than 10 days passed. After traveling day and night, they finally arrived at Cloud-Devouring Valley. Cloud-Devouring Valley belonged to the border between the Thunder Dragon Grotto and the God-Forbidding Grotto. In other words, neither the Zhuge God-forbidding clan nor the Thunder Dragon Grotto would rashly step into this place. This was also the reason why Longchen chose to come here immediately to search for the Sovereign Lord's body parts. Longchen had already made up his mind. If the Sovereign Lord's body parts here could not help his cultivation level reach the 3rd level of the Divine Monarch realm, then he would bring the Immeasurable Emperor and Zhuzang Dizuan back to the people of Baiyi Shen and wait for the next report from Shu San. As soon as the 3 of them stopped, the Immeasurable Emperor's frowning face suddenly became a little more spirited. The cloud-devouring valley was beyond the reach of one's eyes. It was like a giant tree that had been hollowed out and fallen on top of many high and dangerous mountains, or a boundless dry riverbed that stretched all the way to the heavens. Although this place was called a valley, its length and width were a little ridiculous. Everyone immediately knew why this place was called Cloud-Devouring Valley. This valley passed through the mountains in dangerous places, as if it was hanging in the sky. Countless clouds seemed to have been swallowed into its stomach. The flood serpent moves, swallowing the mountains and rivers. Its mouth spits out auspicious signs, and its stomach contains the mountains and rivers. Wonderful, wonderful! The Immeasurable Emperor could not help but exclaim. There was even a hint of excitement in his words. Longchen and Zhuzang Dizuan looked at each other and could not help but smile. This place could make the Immeasurable Emperor reveal such an expression. It was probably either a graveyard or a place with hidden treasures. Longchen was the first to speak. Did you see something? You should know what I'm looking for, right? This place was too big. Even with the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul, it was difficult to sense the body parts in a short time. Moreover, this valley was not simple. The Immeasurable Emperor nodded, but he stared at Longchen and Zhuzang Dizuan. He coughed softly and said, I've seen most of it, but we need to talk about the distribution of the artifacts. As soon as he finished speaking, the corners of Longchen and Zhuzang Dizuan's eyes could not help but twitch. Zhuzang Dizuan directly punched him into the ground and shouted, hurry up and say it. We haven't even found the door yet, and you're already thinking about dividing the loot? Amateus Buddha, no matter how much you abuse me, I won't change my mind. I want at least 50%. As soon as the Immeasurable Emperor finished speaking, Zhuzang Dizuan hit him again. 40%. Stop hitting me. I can't go any lower. 30%, 30%. Longchen looked at the two fooling around and smiled bitterly. He stretched out his hand to pull Zhuzang Dizuan away and said to the Immeasurable Emperor, okay, hurry up and tell me what's so special about this place. I'll give you my 30%, and you can take the 60%. The Immeasurable Emperor jumped up and stared at Zhuzang Dizuan. He snorted coldly and said, boy, don't be arrogant. Once I get the artifacts here, I'm confident that I can step into the Sovereign Realm within a year. At that time, Longchen could not help but raise his eyebrows. It seemed that this cloud-devouring valley was not a simple place. The Immeasurable Emperor had a cultivation technique tailored for him by the Sovereign Lord. However, he had not stepped into the Sovereign Realm during this time. He had not yet stepped into the late stage of Sovereign Lord, but he knew that there were things here that could help him step into the Sovereign Realm even before he stepped into the cloud-devouring valley. There were probably a lot of artifacts here. On the other side, Zhuzang Dizuan's divine power surged and he quickly hid behind Longchen. He stared at the cloud-devouring valley with a serious face and said, this place is located at the intersection of two great grotto heavens. The changes in the terrain seem to be caused by the power of heaven and earth, but it's actually the place where the ghost dragon resides. If I'm not wrong, there must be a hidden ghost tomb array formation thousands of miles underground. It's the power of this array that formed the ghost dragon swallowing the sky. There's an auspicious sign in its belly, which is what the cloud-devouring valley looks like now. As the Immeasurable Emperor spoke, he rushed into the cloud-devouring valley. Longchen and Zhuzang Dizuan followed closely behind. Chapter 1006. Inside the cloud-devouring valley. As soon as Longchen and the others soared into the sky and landed at the entrance of the valley, they attracted dozens of gazes. Longchen and the other two could not help but stop in their tracks. They looked at each other as if they did not expect so many people to stay in the cloud-devouring valley. The immeasurable emperor and Juzan Dizuan immediately came behind Long Chen. Both of their cultivations could only be regarded as salted fish in the central region. More than half of the dozens of people in the valley could easily kill them. The three of them stopped for a moment and a group of people who were less than 10,000 meters away walked over. There were a total of 10 people in the group. 7 of them were dressed in dark green robes while the other 3 were dressed in different colors. It was obvious that they were not in the same group. The leader was a green-haired middle-aged man. He was dressed in a refreshing manner and looked quite elegant. He revealed his aura before he even got close, revealing that he was a 4th-level divine king. "Are you here to compete for the 5-colored cloud?" The middle-aged man took the lead and asked Long Chen. He did not bow to Long Chen and his words sounded like he was questioning Long Chen. However, the people around them did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. After all, this person had the battle prowess of a level 4 divine king, which was far superior to Long Chen's. Long Chen thought for a moment and nodded directly, replying, "There is nothing else here." "Of course, I'm here for the 5-colored cloud." With so many people gathered here, the 5-colored cloud was definitely not ordinary. Although he was not here for it, looking at the current situation, if he did not respond to the middle-aged man's words, he would probably be driven away in the next moment. The green-haired middle-aged man nodded and said lightly, "Then you will follow behind us as an honored guest of our clan. When the time comes, we will give you a share of the 5-colored cloud. As for the 2 juniors behind you, tell them to leave quickly." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, he turned around and led everyone back to their original place. Long Chen quickly stepped forward and said, "Sir, please wait. These 2 are proficient in array Dao patterns and have the ability to find treasures. They may be of great use this time." The middle-aged man frowned and waved his hand. He was too lazy to pay attention to Long Chen. Long Chen and the other 2 looked at each other. They could only go with the flow and follow behind this middle-aged man. There were 4 groups of people in the front and back, with dozens of people in total. Nearly 30 of them were divine kings, and even the weakest was a peak stage emperor realm venerable. The 4 leaders were mid-god kings. Such a lineup did not give them much choice. The immeasurable emperor whispered, "There are so many divine kings here. Why don't we find a chance to escape? Should we wait for the ghostly dragon swallowing the heavens land to disperse before making any plans?" Long Chen shook his head slightly and said, "I don't know if there is a tomb for your ghostly dragon swallowing the heavens here, but where do you think there is a place in this vast devouring cloud valley that can hide the 5-colored clouds? I'm pretty sure the heaven-devouring land you mentioned is about to show up." After Long Chen and the others arrived, 2 or 3 more groups of people arrived in the next 6 to 8 hours. Regardless of whether they were from the God Clan or rogue cultivators, all the experts who had reached peak stage Emperor realm and above were assigned to the various groups. These people are enough. We have already agreed on this matter. Let's get the 5-color clouds first before we distribute them. A green-faced old man said in a deep voice. There were many formation patterns around this person. As soon as he finished speaking, the people in the various groups nodded. Long Chen and the others also recognized the origin of this group of people. They were undoubtedly from the Zhuge Jin clan. The patterns on their robes were also in the shape of feather fans and silk scarves. As soon as this person finished speaking, he took the lead and flew towards the central area of the devouring cloud valley. Dozens of divine kings. If this was not the central region, such a scene would be enough to cause a sensation wherever they went. A divine king could already command 1,000 venerable emperors. A Tianyuan divine clan like the Zhuge Jin clan had almost 1,000 venerable emperors under their command. This was also why the major grotto heavens were so terrifying. Any one of the grotto heavens could probably dominate all the territories outside of the central region. Of course, in reality, no one would do such a thing. Those places were too barren for the central region. The primal chaos domain under the central continent was the place that everyone dreamed of. The group walked along the valley for half a day before stopping behind the Zhuge Jin clan's group. The 5-color clouds should have fallen into the valley from here. My Zhuge Jin clan can open up this place and lead everyone in. At that time, we will also be the first to choose the 5-colored clouds. Do you have any objections? The green-faced old man asked confidently. The people around looked at each other and whispered to each other. In the end, they still nodded in agreement. The Zhuge Jin clan asked this question. Perhaps they were the only ones who could open up this place. Although the Zhuge Jin clan was one of the 36 grotto heavens, their strength was not their overall strength, but their terrifying Dao of formations. Long Chen and the Immeasurable Emperor's pupils contracted. The Immeasurable Emperor even nodded to Long Chen. Long Chen immediately understood. He knew that this place was probably the entrance to the ghost dragon swallowing the heavens. It seemed that it was a wise decision to follow these people today. What happened next would depend on their luck. The Zhuge Jin clan's right hand grabbed at the air. Inscriptions began to move around his body and then left his body to draw on the void. The 5 elements gathered. Divine power from all directions broke through the air and finally landed in the place where everyone's eyes were focused. It was the gap in the highest mountain and also the bottom of the cloud-devouring valley. As the inscriptions of the formation fell, the originally uneven valley began to shake violently. Then, it began to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. The crack began to appear in front of the green-faced old man. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As soon as the crack appeared, the Zhuge Jin clan took the lead and rushed in. Several groups followed closely behind. Long Chen and the others did the same. The crack was like a cliff. The side walls were extremely steep and bottomless. There were countless crisscrossing flashes of light on all sides. These flashes of light revealed a mysterious power. People could not help but take a few more glances at them. Of course, after descending for 10,000 meters, many people looked away and focused on the bottom of the crack. There were streaks of light surging in there. There were even 5-colored lights flowing back and forth. Although the Zhuge Jin clan was walking in front, they seemed to be stunned as they looked at the cracked mountain walls on both sides. The other group that stopped was Long Chen and the other 2. The Immeasurable Emperor followed closely behind Long Chen. After a few thousand meters, he stood on the cliff in a daze. How is this possible? The Immeasurable Emperor's body trembled. He pointed at the flashing inscriptions on the wall with his right hand. His eyes flashed. Long Chen and Zhuzang Dizun were very confused by the Immeasurable Emperor's reaction. Chapter 1007. Flawless Dao Pattern. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul spoke, and Long Chen was stunned. Although he had never heard of it before, he knew that it was rare just by looking at it. Dao patterns born from heaven and earth were naturally flawless. The Immeasurable Emperor lost his composure for a moment, and he quickly pretended to be calm. When he looked at the people from the Zhuge Forbidden God clan, he let out a sigh of relief. Many of them seemed to know about the flawless Dao pattern, and they were all stunned on the spot, and had yet to recover from the shock. The Immeasurable Emperor did not know that Long Chen already knew that these were flawless Dao patterns, and he quickly transmitted a message: the walls are all flawless Dao patterns. This is not a tomb at all, but a cave born from creation, and it can lead to endless opportunities. Long Chen nodded, and signaled him to continue following behind. At that moment, Long Chen had a thought in his mind, and he felt that the reason for this place was probably related to the Emperor Lord's remnant body. Ghostly dragon swallows the sky. The terrain here was strange, and the feng shui was excellent. If the Emperor Lord's remnant body fell into this place and was seized by the terrain, there might be such a change. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul seemed to know what Long Chen was thinking, and he said in a deep voice, "This place can indeed fuse with my remnant body's origin. Compared to the other god clans plundering, my body is more compatible with the ancient Saint Divine World's origin, and it's not impossible to fuse with it under creation." Long Chen frowned slightly. If it was as he and the Emperor Lord's remnant soul guessed, then this place was full of opportunities, and it was a place where rare treasures gathered, but it would also be very dangerous. Only God knew what kind of terrifying thing the Emperor Lord's remnant body would nurture. Long Chen and the others followed behind the others, and they gradually came to the bottom of the crack, and the space around them became much wider. The flickering patterns above also made the bottom not too dark. The people from the Zhuge Forbidden God clan quickly came back to their senses, and like the immeasurable emperor, they pretended that nothing was wrong. Long Chen used the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to easily sense the excitement in their eyes. The fact that this place could produce flawless Tao patterns was enough to prove that it was not as simple as the 5-colored clouds. When everyone landed at the bottom, they realized that it was not a flat land. The flowing light was actually a river that was more than 10 meters wide. On both sides of the river, the 5-colored brilliance was like ribbons. Those are the outermost strands of the 5-colored clouds. It seems like the 5-colored clouds landed here. A member of the Zhuge Jinshan clan said in a deep voice. Long Chen's serpent-robed man nodded. The 5-colored clouds fell here, but I never thought that there would be such a marvelous scene below the devouring cloud valley. I don't know where this river leads to. Let's hurry and follow the flow. Otherwise, if the 5-colored cloud is obtained by someone else, wouldn't it be like drawing water with a bamboo basket? After a short discussion, everyone followed the river and sped down. This time, the scene was indeed slightly different. Surprisingly, the Zhuge Jinshan clan slowed down their pace. Long Chen and the others also pretended that their cultivation levels were low. They were gasping for breath, and their speed became slower and slower. They were at the back of the group. The other clans did not change at all. Although they were careful, they were not on guard against this place. In their eyes, although the flashing patterns on the cliff were strange and unpredictable, they did not have any divine power in them. Hence, they did not pay much attention to it. Most of them even thought that it was some kind of pattern stone that grew on the cliff. As everyone moved forward, more and more 5-colored ribbons appeared on both sides of the river. The ribbons were all 5 colors regardless of size. Red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. They were evenly distributed. It was strange. A stone all that was as thick as a bucket was inserted in the center of the river. There was an arm-sized ribbon of clouds hanging on it. There was even a slender illusory object on it. A first-level divine king recruited by the leading team in a fiery red robe received an order. He quickly rushed to the center of the river to obtain the ribbon. Humph! The other teams were unhappy when they saw that. However, they could not be bothered to make a fuss over such a small thing. However, before they finished speaking, there was a sudden change. A silver light flashed across the originally dark river. It took up a few meters of the river bed. The silver light flew up and broke through the water, splashing water everywhere. The silver light was dazzling. It was a huge fish mouth filled with fangs. The half-fish half-turtle emerged from the water and bit down on the Divine King who had leaped onto the river. The Divine King expert's divine power surged. A long blade condensed in his right hand and he slashed down. This person's reaction was fast. The might of his divine power was extremely condensed. He was most likely one of the best among the divine race. However, just as his long blade fell and his divine power surged, the fish beast's mouth suddenly formed thousands of runes. An earth-shaking tearing force surged out. Rumble. Such a terrifying tearing force caused the surrounding people to subconsciously release the pressure around them. Divine power filled the sky one after another. The sudden appearance of such a source beast caused everyone's expression to change. When they looked over, they discovered that half of the first-level Divine King's body had been swallowed by the fish beast. Blood flowed out of his mouth. Only then did they realize that the river was not bottomless because of the darkness, but because it was a black river. The fish beast disappeared into the river a moment later. The surface of the river returned to its previous calm, as if nothing had happened. In fact, the rainbow ribbon was still hanging from the stone all at the center of the river. Only the thick smell of blood reminded everyone of the terrifying scene that had just taken place. Everyone stared at the river cautiously. After a moment of silence, the fiery-robed leader said in a deep voice, "Did you see it clearly? That's a turtle-scaled source beast. There's no mistake. Indeed, it's a turtle-scaled source beast. It's just that it's slightly larger. It's just that his body size has increased, by 2 points. Turtle-scaled source beasts have always been reared in the caves. You've seen one that can devour a divine king, but I've only seen a few that can devour a monarch. There's indeed something wrong with this turtle-scaled source beast. It should be intelligent, but that source beast's eyes didn't seem to contain any other light apart from its instinctive brutality." Everyone nodded in agreement when they heard his words. Turtle-scaled source beasts resembled both a turtle and a fish. They were silver-white in color and looked extremely beautiful under the moonlight. After a short discussion, the red-robed team and Long Chen's python-robed team reached a consensus. They were prepared to join hands and kill the turtle-scaled source beast in the river to see what kind of changes it had undergone. Many people had already guessed that some kind of strange treasure was hidden in the river. Chapter 1008. Deep underground, the Black River was turbulent. Long Chen's sudden words caused the surrounding people to look at him. The green-haired middle-aged man frowned and gestured for Long Chen to step back. Long Chen was about to speak but was stopped by the immeasurable emperor. "It's too late. The people in front have already started. Let's step back." The three of them slowly stepped back and put some distance between them and the Black River. On the other side, the people from the Zhuge Jin clan were very cautious. They did not participate in this and retreated at the same time. Since there were flawless Tao inscriptions here, who knew what else was in the river? Over a dozen god kings in the fiery red robes and serpent robes teams released their auras. The flickering light instantly lit up the entire space. Every single one of them subconsciously compressed their divine power as they were afraid of collapsing the place. However, when they approached the river, waves suddenly rolled out from the pitch-black river. Streaks of silvery white light appeared on the surface of the water. Before the god kings could do anything, they felt a chill run down their spines. As far as their eyes could see, there were exotic beasts all around the river. Many of these underwater exotic beasts were well-known names, but there were also many that they had never seen before. However, all of them had the same aura as the turtle-scaled source beast from before. The faces of all the god kings changed drastically at the sight of such a huge horde of underwater beasts. Almost no one hesitated at all. One moment, they were making a solemn vow, and the next moment, they fled. At this very moment, Long Chen's group and the people from the Zhuge Jin clan were already close to 10,000 meters away. The middle-aged man leading the serpent-robed team was livid. Many of the people behind him did not say a word. However, they did not feel good when they saw 3 or 4 people being swallowed by the source beasts. The red-robed team was the same. They snorted coldly and fled. When everyone arrived at the back of the river, it was so shallow that they could see the bottom. It was only as wide as a bucket. Only then did they realize that 8 early-stage god kings had died unnatural deaths and were dragged into the Black River. The source beasts in the river swam back and forth, but they did not leave the river to pursue them. Seeing that, only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. What's going on here? Why hasn't anyone discovered such a terrifying place in the devouring Cloud Valley before? Many of the regular origin beasts in the river have mutated. They can actually kill early god kings. This place is definitely not as simple as we imagine it to be. Many people began to guess after recovering from their shock. A god king expert's divine power was torrential, and even a trace of their divine soul was enough to be reborn. However, the demonic beast in the Black River seemed to possess unparalleled strength. It actually swallowed the demonic beast in one gulp. Such a scene was likely something only the legendary Genesis beasts could achieve. While everyone was talking, the middle-aged man in the python robe walked toward Long Chen with a gloomy face. Divine power surged all over his body, and there was a hint of hostility in his eyes. How do you know that there are so many source beasts in the river? Is there something else hidden there? The middle-aged man's question caused the red-robed men to look at Long Chen. Of the 8 people who died this time, 6 of them were from these 2 groups. Longchen frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "The tortoise scale source beast is just an ordinary beast. Who can guarantee that there are no other Genesis beasts in the river that have mutated? I'm just guessing. I didn't give the order to investigate this river." Longchen was very unhappy with the man's words and actions. It was obvious that the man wanted to push all the blame onto him. When everyone was preparing to enter the river, Longchen felt sympathy for them. Now that everyone had died because of this man, he only wanted to shift the blame. The middle-aged man did not expect Longchen to be so unyielding. He raised his eyebrows, but there was a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. The people from the other clans also began to watch the show. Only the Zhuge Jinshan clan could not help but look at Longchen and the others in a new light. They could vaguely sense that they were aware of the extraordinariness of this place. The fundamental reason why so many people fell into this trap was because they thought this place was not a dangerous place and had let down their guard. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan smiled when he saw the middle-aged man in a python robe and Longchen's group had a rift between them. He walked forward and said, "Do the ghost pythons like to shift the blame so much? You didn't give him a chance to speak. The 3 of you should come to the Zhuge Jinshan clan. Otherwise, you may be played to death by your own people." The green-haired middle-aged man in a python robe from the ghost python clan turned pale when he heard what the leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan said. Before he could speak, Longchen's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. He now knew that the green-haired middle-aged man in a python robe was a godly king expert from the ghost python clan. The immeasurable emperor's eyes flickered as he pulled Longchen and Zhuzan Dizuan to the Zhuge Jinshan clan's group and said respectfully, "Thank you for your help. There's something strange here, please take care of it." The Zhuge Jinshan clan could tell that the 3 of them were aware of the strangeness of this place. The immeasurable emperor was also interested in the Zhuge Jinshan clan's attainment and formations. "It's just a few people who died. We just have to be more careful," another leader said in a deep voice. "Now it seems that there's more to this place than just the 5 colored clouds. Perhaps there's a great opportunity." Everyone around nodded. The river was so strange that even ordinary source beasts mutated and could devour godly kings. It would be strange if there was no opportunity greater than the 5 colored clouds. The middle-aged man in the lead of the ghost python clan suddenly said, "Perhaps there's a chance to save the people in the river. Their souls and bodies should still be in the stomach of these exotic beasts. These origin beasts are all underwater exotic beasts. Once the water in the Black River is sucked dry, they'll be at the mercy of others in the riverbed." As his words fell, the surrounding people all nodded, secretly thinking that what he said was somewhat reasonable. The middle-aged man from the ghost python clan continued, "Just direct the river from here to the other side. But before that, let's find 2 people to lure these exotic beasts to the place where they came from." His gaze landed on Longchen, and the meaning behind his words was self-evident. The Zhuge Jinshan clan's leader immediately said, "Aren't you sending him to his death? It shouldn't be a problem for us mid-stage godly kings to lure these origin beasts away. Why do you want him to risk his life?" The middle-aged man from the ghost python clan sneered, "If you're willing, you can do it yourself. My clan won't participate." The people from the other clans had no intention of responding. They couldn't be bothered with this matter. Chapter 1009. The leader of the ghost python clan didn't seem to have thought that Longchen would take the initiative to accept this proposal. He had originally wanted to force Longchen to step forward, but now he swallowed those words and sneered, "A Genesis beast corpse? If you can lure these source beasts away, I'll give you everything in the river." The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan came forward and asked Longchen in a deep voice, "Although those source beasts are very strange and their bodies can be used as medicine, it's really not worth risking your life for them." The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan were also stunned. When Longchen gave them a meaningful glance, their hearts calmed down, and they even faintly guessed the reason. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, everyone was very puzzled as to why Longchen would agree to this matter. Several early god kings were swallowed into the Black River, but the scene was still vivid in their minds. The middle-aged man who was the leader of the ghost pythons laughed and said, "Since he is willing to go, what are you waiting for? Extract all of the Black River from the place where the river in front of us has slowed down. Although this Black River is strange, it can't stop the divine origin power of all of us." When he finished, he glanced at Longchen and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and lure this group of Genesis beasts away." Longchen didn't say a word as he swam upstream along the shore. Swoosh! Swoosh! Streaks of divine light fell into the Black River unhurriedly as he flew. The power of numerous source beasts rose and fell in the Black River. Many of them opened their huge mouths and tried to swallow Longchen. A huge, flat python with a mouth that was actually more than 30 meters long was about to swallow Longchen before its waist even came out of the water. The two turtle-scaled source beasts spat out numerous blue Dao inscriptions from their mouths and swept towards Longchen. The hair-raising scene from before appeared once again as numerous Genesis beasts pounced towards Longchen. Everyone's expression changed slightly. This time, they could clearly see that these demonic beasts were filled with a vast amount of origin energy. This type of origin energy gave off a terrifying feeling that made one's heart palpitate. It was this strange and terrifying origin power that allowed these originally ordinary origin beasts to devour the power of God Kings. On the other hand, everyone confirmed their guesses. No matter how the source beasts attacked, a portion of their bodies would always remain in the Black River. For a moment, everyone was curious about the Black River. Rumble! The attacks of the various source beasts landed one after another. Many people could already see Longchen being torn apart. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the scene stunned everyone. Longchen dodged all of the attacks by a hair's breadth. The divine power around his body was even denser than his peers. Even so, many bone-deep wounds began to appear on his body. What a fast speed, what a powerful divine power. This person is really only at the first level of the God King realm. Such terrifying speed and the strength of his origin divine power are truly unimaginable. Hurry up and attack. Otherwise, no matter how strong he is, he won't be able to last long against so many Genesis beasts. Everyone was still in shock. The Zhuge Jinshan clan hurriedly shouted. The immeasurable emperor and the others also urged everyone to start capturing the Black River. The various god kings nodded. Streaks of divine light from their right hands fell into the Black River. Buzz! When the divine power fell into the Black River, it immediately flickered as if it was being suppressed by an endless force. Just as everyone had guessed, the river itself was very strange. It could not be viewed as an ordinary stream at all. The runes around the Zhuge Jinshan clan rippled. Origin divine power whizzed out and formed 4 giant arms with the power of the formation to grab the Black River. The Black River was originally a formless object, but it was now being grabbed by the 2 pairs of arms. The 4-faced God King's expression became more serious. He did not expect the Black River to be so difficult to capture. More and more people joined in. Not many of them actually wanted to save the Black River. The reason they participated in the capture of Black River was to see what kind of thing was hidden under the riverbed. What item could cause such a terrifying change in this place? It was just a Black River, but it took all the God Kings present to capture it. Rumble! The Black River whizzed and looked like it was about to rise from the ground. Many people even saw the many origin beasts' bodies exposed in the air. Although these origin beasts were inexplicably powerful, their intelligence was getting lower and lower. They did not intend to turn back and interrupt the people present. They were still chasing after Longchen. Longchen was not in a good situation at the moment. A large amount of his flesh had been gnawed away, and he was dripping with blood. If he had not fused part of his body with the Emperor's body, he would have been swallowed into the Black River. Hurry up! Otherwise, Longchen will probably die an unnatural death. The immeasurable monarch shouted. The Zhuge Jinshan clan was the first to increase the power of the origin formation. They pulled the entire Black River into the sky. It gradually rose from the entrance to everyone's heads and was about to land on the other side. On the other side. The demon beasts let out ear-piercing screeches as soon as they left the Black River. A large number of fish beasts fell to the ground. Things were progressing smoothly, and Long Chen's pressure was greatly reduced. However, just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, he suddenly heard a muffled sound behind him. The riverbed that had been raised suddenly fell again, and some of the black water even directly drowned him. The Black River water beasts instinctively rushed toward Long Chen. Rumble. Thousands of rays of light shot up from under the Black River, and the stone walls in all directions collapsed. "What are you doing?" Juzan Dizuan and the Immeasurable Emperor's expressions changed drastically. They stared at the leader of the Ghost Python clan angrily. The people around also frowned slightly. They clearly sensed that at that moment, a force suddenly pulled the Black River toward Long Chen. The middle-aged leader of the Ghost Python clan roared with divine power. He waved his sleeve, and a violent force directly sent the Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan flying, and they slammed into the wall behind them. The Zhuge Jinshan clan leader's expression darkened, and he shouted, "Tian Dan, don't be too presumptuous. You're not the only Ghost Python clan here. If you don't do it now, the power of my clan's formation will disperse, and we won't be able to capture the Black River. You're the one responsible for this." Tian Dan sneered, but he didn't refute. He glanced at the Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan sarcastically, and cooperated with the others to capture the Black River. The Black River was captured. Almost all the Black River water beasts gathered under the left wall, and that was where Long Chen was. Puff. The Black River fell from the entrance behind them to the front, and was then sealed by the formation. Chapter 10:10. Under the Black River, black sand covered the riverbed and flickered with a dark light. Many people rushed out to fight for the sand. None of them had any intention of saving people. Instead, the Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan quickly killed the aquatic beasts. Although the aquatic beasts were still powerful after leaving the Black River, they were no different from ordinary aquatic beasts. They could not move at all. The Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan blasted open the corpses of the aquatic beasts one after another, saving 7 or 8 early-stage god kings who were still alive. These people were all terrified as they quickly ran away from the dead aquatic beasts behind them. After everyone left, the Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan's hands suddenly froze as they searched for Long Chen. The two of them looked down at the corpses of the aquatic beasts and saw Long Chen at the very bottom. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Almost half of his flesh had been torn apart, and his soul had been weakened to the extreme after being bitten by several aquatic beasts. Huff and puff. The Juzan Dizuan and Immeasurable Emperor were both furious as they panted heavily. "Go back and say that I'm dead. I'll take revenge myself." Long Chen's voice rang out in the ears of Juzan Dizuan and Immeasurable Emperor. The Immeasurable Emperor heard the murderous intent in Long Chen's voice. Just when Juzan Dizuan was about to say something, the Immeasurable Emperor pulled him back. The Immeasurable Emperor then turned around and walked towards the other group of people who were fighting for the black sand. The Immeasurable Emperor said coldly, "I can't just let this go." The various god kings clashed with one another, and as their divine light scattered, they still retained some of their aura as they were afraid of collapsing the place. The black sand under the riverbed was quickly taken away. Seeing the Immeasurable Emperor and Juzan Dizuan standing to the side, the leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan asked, "Is Long Chen still alive?" The Immeasurable Emperor sighed and said, "His soul was torn apart." Almost all the aquatic beasts gathered there. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan frowned, but he did not say anything after a casual glance. He said to the Immeasurable Emperor, "The two of you should continue to follow behind my people. We might need you in the future, and we will do our best to preserve your lives." Life. On the other side. The middle-aged man from the Ghost Python celestial race looked at Huang Xiaolong and Huang Xiaolong mockingly. He then pointed at the sea of corpses and said, "It's all my fault. If I didn't lose my strength, things wouldn't have turned out this way. But even though he's dead, there are still so many corpses to accompany him. This can be considered as fulfilling his wish. Congratulations. He pretended to feel sorry, but there was a hint of a smile in his tone. The veins on Zhuzang Duzuan's forehead bulged, but the immeasurable emperor patted him on the back and said with a smile, "You're right, you're right." The surrounding people glanced at the place where the aquatic beasts died, but they were too lazy to go any closer to check it out. The Zhuge Jingishan clan turned around and walked into the river again. The black river had become a little clearer and turned into a dark blue color. Seeing this, everyone subconsciously thought that the aquatic beasts were formed by the black sand. The Zhuge Jingishan clan continued to go deeper into the river where the water was thin, and then they used a formation to break open another space. The divine light in the eyes of the immeasurable emperor and the Zhuge Jingishan clan became brighter and brighter. The flawless Taoist patterns around this place became more and more complicated, and the divine light intertwined. Even the other groups felt that these patterns were strange and unpredictable. Everyone entered one after another, but the immeasurable emperor walked behind the Zhuge Jingishan clan. He signaled to Zhuzang Duzuan with his eyes, and his right hand silently drew on the flawless Taoist patterns. On the other side, the place where the aquatic beasts died, Longchen stood up and shook off the aquatic beasts that were biting on his soul, and his body that was riddled with holes gradually regenerated. The reason these aquatic beasts are like this is partly because of the black source sand, but mainly because they devoured the origin energy of the Imperial Lord's remains. Longchen looked at the corpses of the sailors around him, and with a wave of his hand, strands of law spread out. At the same time, the Primal Chaos Golden Codex was circulating wildly. Longchen took out a pile of flesh from his right hand from his storage ring. These were all obtained from the Red Moon that day, and they were the flesh of the Imperial Lord's remains in the Blood Moon well. The origin energy of the Imperial Lord's remains began to surge toward Longchen, and Longchen's Divine King aura, which was originally at the first stage of the Imperial Lords, rose at a terrifying speed. These aquatic beasts' intelligence and bloodline were extremely low, and if it were not for the flawless Taoist patterns, they would not have been able to fuse with the remains at all. Although the fusion gave them unfathomable power, they had lost all their intelligence, and were reduced to livestock. The Imperial Lord's origin energy had been deposited in their bodies, so Longchen could absorb it again. That was also why Longchen was willing to take the risk. Longchen muttered to himself as he watched his cultivation increase, "I don't see any remains of the Imperial Lord's remains in this river. It seems like these aquatic beasts only obtained a portion of his flesh." Time flew. In just 4 days, Longchen's cultivation had broken through to the second stage of the Divine King realm, and the aquatic beasts' corpses around him had all withered. Rumble. Longchen could clearly feel the ground shaking, and his hands moved even faster. He was already very familiar with devouring the Imperial Lord's origin energy. In the depths of the cloud-devouring valley. At this time, a full 8 days had passed. Longchen had long been forgotten by everyone. During the 4 days of exploration, the various parties had already seen the 5 colored clouds. The 5 colored clouds were close to 10 meters tall, and they were floating above the cave, surrounded by flawless Taoist patterns. Everyone could faintly see that behind the 5 colored clouds, there was an area covered by Yandong. Now that they had gone 10 to 20,000 miles underground, it seemed like there was still a space between them and the surface. Everyone was very excited. In these 8 days, although a few people from each faction died, they had obtained a large number of treasures. Just the Zhuge Jingjin clan alone had obtained 7 types of ores that could be used to refine their clan's protection magic weapons, and 3 types of magic weapons that were naturally formed. Only the Ghost Python clan's Tian Dam looked gloomy. There were many livor mortis spots on their bodies, and it was unbearably itchy. There was even a Divine King expert who died. If it were not for the Zhuge Jingjin clan, they would have suffered even more. Tian Dam looked at the livor mortis spots on their bodies, but his gaze fell on the Zhuge Jingjin clan, and it was rather gloomy. Although the Zhuge Jingjin clan had broken this technique, it made him feel that it was the Zhuge Jingjin clan's doing. After all, when they killed Longchen, they did not give the Jingjin clan any face. Chapter 10-11. 5 Colored Clouds. The fact that the Grotto Heavens and God clans valued it so much showed how precious it was. After some discussion, they decided on the plan of dividing the 5 colored clouds. The Zhuge Jinshan clan naturally took the most, and the rest were almost equally distributed, and then given to each of the Zhuge Jinshan clan. In comparison, the immeasurable emperor naturally only got a few strands of the clouds, and it was even less than what was left in the Black River. Rumble. The divine kings of the Zhuge Jinshan clan all flew into the air and stood around the 5 colored clouds. In the 4 cardinal directions, there were 4 people with artifacts in their hands, and Taoist rhymes appeared above their heads, capturing the entire 5 colored clouds. Everyone came for the 5 colored clouds, so they were naturally prepared. The first 8 days were much more complicated than getting the 5 colored clouds for them. After the power of the formations condensed, 5 colored divine lightning evolved in the 5 colored clouds, and it turned into lightning snakes that spread out. The surrounding clans seemed to be prepared as well, and they began to suppress the 5 colored divine lightning. Attack, slaughter the Zhuge Jinshan clan. How dare they attack us, the Ghost Python clan, for an outsider. Tiandan's face was filled with murderous intent, and as soon as he said that, the Ghost Pythons behind him unleashed all their power and attacked the Zhuge Jinshan clan. The Zhuge Jinshan clan's expression changed drastically, and they were caught off guard. Everyone immediately gave up on suppressing the 5 colored clouds, and formation runes appeared all over their bodies, and a boundless killing formation instantly covered the entire space. The immeasurable emperor and Tiandan instinctively retreated to the back. The Zhuge Jinshan clan was indeed one of the 32 Grotto Heavens, and their short counterattack was earth-shattering. If it weren't for the flawless Taoist runes all over this place, it would have been turned into ruins. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan said coldly, "A few days ago, my clan's young master was somewhat related to your clan's Yao Yeji, so I didn't want to attack your clan, but it seems like I've underestimated you, Tiandan. Rumor has it that you're cruel, and although you're a divine king, you're despicable, and it seems like that's true. Kill them all here along with the Taoist runes." The Zhuge Jinshan clan was not to be trifled with. If the immeasurable emperor could use the flawless Tao patterns here, the Zhuge Forbidden God race's deity kings could do the same. Soul sealing technique, heaven and earth transformation. The members of the Zhuge Jinshan clan performed their inherited divine arts. As soon as the inherited divine technique appeared, the numerous and densely packed flawless Tao patterns in all directions instantly blossomed with a dazzling light, transforming into an inescapable net that enveloped all the ghost pythons. Rumble. The air around the ghost python clan's god kings began to explode. Flames appeared out of thin air, filled with killing intent. The people from the other clans also retreated, not wanting to get involved in this matter. This time, everyone finally understood what was on the wall. Something that could be used by the Zhuge Jinshan clan was either a Tao pattern or a formation. With such a terrifying killing formation, everyone couldn't help but be wary of the Zhuge Jinshan clan. However, the members of the Ghost Python clan led by Yao Dan were the only ones who sneered. They didn't seem to be panicking at all. Yao Dan suddenly laughed wildly. "I didn't expect this. The Zhuge Jinshan clan's formation Tao patterns are truly immeasurable. If I wasn't prepared, we would all die here today." As soon as he said that, a blue pattern stone flew out from each of their chests and crashed into the formation Tao patterns in all directions. There was an explosion. The blue light swept out in all directions like a tide. Not only did it blast open a gap in the formation, it also slithered towards the members of the Zhuge Jinshan clan like a poisonous snake. "Blue poison divine stone, how did you get this?" The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan's expression changed drastically. "You've wanted to kill us for a long time." As soon as he said that, the deity kings took the lead to escape, but the 5 or 6 leaders were instantly corroded by the blue light. The formation runes on their bodies all turned into a terrifying blue color, and their origin energy was quickly drained away. Shatter their bodies and capture their souls. Yao Dan laughed wildly, and his gloominess was swept away. Puff puff puff. Along with a series of muffled sounds, the Ghost Python clan's people instantly killed all the poison people, and only their souls were captured. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan and the four behind him looked extremely gloomy. Our clan's young master Yao Yi indeed has the intention of marrying your clan's young master, so I won't kill you today. Yao Dan walked up to them arrogantly and said, however, you'd better give all of the 5 colored clouds to us for safekeeping. And give us the Chaos Yuan diagram of soul suppression on you too. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan was startled, and then said coldly, Blue Poison Divine Stone, looks like you prepared this thing for my Chaos Yuan diagram. If I'm not wrong, you purposely told me about the 5 colored clouds. Yao Dan snorted and nodded, and said arrogantly, cut the crap. If you want these people to live, just do it. I want the 5 colored clouds Chaos Yuan diagram too. After that, he looked at the immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. You've destroyed so many people's bodies. The 2 of them can help us capture the 5 colored clouds. Otherwise, it'll take at least a few more days. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan said in a deep voice. Yao Dan snorted and said impatiently, hurry up and do it. The Zhuge Jinshan clan's people looked at each other. Looking at the captured souls, they could only helplessly capture the 5 colored clouds again. The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan were also involved. The immeasurable emperor's proficiency in formations impressed the Zhuge Jinshan clan. As for Zhuzan Dizuan, he was just putting on an act. The divine lightning appeared again, and the people of the various clans attacked again, as if they had no idea what had just happened. More than 20 hours passed. The 5 colored divine lightning in the 5 colored clouds was suppressed and disappeared. Yao Dan was the first to rush forward and split the 5 colored clouds, but he only took 3 layers. The people around saw him and let out a sigh of relief. Yao Dan was not stupid. Although he dared to attack the Zhuge Jinshan clan, he did not dare to offend them. After all, most of the people present were from the 32 grotto heavens. Yao Dan was extremely excited when he got close to 3 layers of the 5 colored clouds. He could not help but laugh. Such a large amount of 5 colored clouds is enough for my cultivation to improve in a few years. After that, Chapter 10-12. The immeasurable emperor suddenly spoke, and everyone around him could not help but take a few more glances at him. Yao Dan took a deep look at the immeasurable emperor and sneered, you're a smart man. Then, take that sovereign behind you and go up and take a look. In fact, many people present had a whole new level of respect for the immeasurable monarch. With so many divine kings here, the fact that he, an imperial emperor, could survive until now after offending Yao Dan was enough to prove his wisdom. The immeasurable emperor nodded with a smile and leaped into the cave above with Zhuzan Dizuan. Inside the cave was a completely different world. The space was not very big. Once they stepped inside, they could see everything in a single glance. It was only about 1,000 meters long and wide. Flawless Tao patterns were still intertwined above them. Below them should have been the ground, but there was only emptiness. The sky was 1,000 meters long, but the ground was endless. Everyone followed closely behind and entered. Everyone was extremely cautious. What's that? Who built the stone palace? Yao Dan could not help but exclaim after entering. Everyone looked over. Within 1,000 meters of space, there were 5 stone palaces built with giant stones. Each of the palaces was only about 10 meters in size, and their shapes were very strange. They looked like the bones of beasts with different thicknesses. If one looked closely, they would notice that the 5 stone palaces were formed by the power of the 5 elements. One was like a flame in the void, one was like blue ice, and one was as heavy as a mountain. The Zhuge Jinshan clan was also shocked. He murmured, This is where the flawless Tao patterns are formed naturally. There must be something born from heaven and earth inside. After the previous battle, all the forces knew about the inextinguishable Tao patterns. There was no point for the Zhuge Jinshan clan to hide it anymore. Everyone's eyes narrowed when they heard that, and they looked excited. Along the way, they had already found quite a few magic tools. Every one of them was priceless and had extraordinary power. Now, there must be even more incredible treasures inside the 5 palaces formed by heaven and earth. All the forces subconsciously distanced themselves from each other. After the battle between the Zhuge Jinshan clan and the Ghost Python clan, they were all wary of each other. Why don't the two of you scout it out first? After this matter is over, I will spare your lives. Yao Dan looked at the immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan with a playful expression. The immeasurable monarch still had a smile on his face as he nodded in agreement. Zhuzan Dizuan clenched his fists, but he knew that he could only swallow his anger and wait for Long Chen to return. After following Long Chen for so long, he knew that Long Chen's cultivation could not be judged by common sense. The Zhuge Jinshan clan's influence was weak now, and a few of their souls were controlled by the Ghost Python clan, so they naturally didn't want to interfere with the immeasurable sovereign emperor's matter. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the immeasurable emperor led Zhuzan Dizuan to a fiery red stone palace on the left. Buzz. The immeasurable emperor's steps were very slow, and his mouth kept uttering complicated words. If Long Chen was here, he would realize that what he was saying was the mantra of truth. Step by step, the immeasurable emperor's feet were gradually covered in a dazzling Buddhist light, and thousands of ancient words were faintly condensed. There was even a rumbling sound lingering, as if the gods and Buddhas were chanting. At this moment, the surrounding people were all shocked. No one thought that an immortal emperor would be able to activate such a powerful origin energy. After I open this palace, you must not leave a meter behind me. You must stand within the mantra of truth. The immeasurable emperor's face was a little pale, and he instructed Zhuzan Dizuan. Zhuzan Dizuan took a deep breath and nodded. At this moment, he deeply understood the heart of the 9 treasures divine king. Whether it was Long Chen or the immeasurable emperor, he had learned a lot from them. He knew that if he was in their shoes, he would have died long ago if he was only an immortal emperor. Rumble. The immeasurable emperor suddenly probed into the fire elemental stone palace. The stone palace opened, and a flaming divine sparrow soared into the sky. Its shadow was tens of thousands of meters long. Its terrifying size instantly covered the entire space, and more than half of its shadow had already fallen into the surrounding rocks. On the other side, Long Chen had devoured all the origin energy in the bodies of the aquatic beasts around him, and his cultivation had directly reached the peak of the 2nd stage of the Divine King realm. In total, only 10 days had passed. In 10 days, he had stepped into the 2nd stage of the Divine King realm from the 1st stage of the Divine King realm. If this news were to spread, it would shake the entire central state. The peak of the 2nd stage of the Divine King realm. If only he could step into the 3rd stage of the Divine King realm. Then, there would be no mistakes. Long Chen frowned. The Divine Kings here were all from the divine tribes of the Grotto Heavens. If they were to go all out, their battle strength would definitely be extraordinary. At this moment, the Emperor Lord's remnant soul spoke again. I can feel a strong fluctuation of origin energy. This fluctuation is extremely pure and has been completely assimilated. It is completely different from these aquatic beasts. If you can obtain it, you will be able to obtain a strong origin energy for a short period of time. However, this origin energy will eventually dissipate. Long Chen was not happy when he heard this. Instead, he said in a deep voice, if that's the case, doesn't that mean that the origin energy in this place can no longer help me break through? The Emperor Lord's remnant soul pondered. This was exactly what he meant. This news was not good news for both of them. There is also a lot of origin energy in the Black Veil. Let's think of a way to obtain it first. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul said helplessly. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul's obsession with reforming the ancient sacred divine world made him care more about the speed of his cultivation than Long Chen himself. Long Chen nodded and sighed. He had no choice but to leave. Rumble. As Long Chen went deeper, Long Chen did not even need the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to sense. He could clearly feel a pure and vast origin energy rushing towards him. Along the way, Long Chen looked at the aura of many unique treasures around him and could not help but sneer. How much have you eaten today? Spit it all out. Long Chen could not help but increase his speed. The ground shook violently. Long Chen could already see the entrance of the cave that was filled with raging flames. What a terrifying origin energy of fire! Could this be the thing that swallowed the origin energy of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul? Long Chen's eyes were filled with shock. Long Chen's divine power circled around his body. He gathered his origin energy and rushed into the cave in the next moment. When he passed through the cave and stepped into the place where the 5 stone palaces were, he was completely stunned. The entire space was like an ocean of raging flames. His vision was almost completely covered by the rich origin energy. Long Chen simply closed his eyes and used the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to explore the place. He covered 1,000 meters of land in an instant. Chapter 10:13. The immeasurable Emperor and Zhuzangduzuan were very close to Long Chen, but they did not sense Long Chen's presence at all. Both of them were in a terrible state, and most of their physical bodies had already disappeared. If it were not for the continuous stream of divine and Buddhist scriptures under the immeasurable Emperor's feet, both of them would have died long ago. The ancient scriptures were like dry wood in a raging fire, disappearing continuously. Buzz. There was a loud rumble, and the endless firepower around them dissipated. Both of them instantly felt the pressure decrease. You're finally here. If you took any longer, I'm not sure if I could have brought him to the entrance of the cave. The immeasurable Emperor collapsed to the ground. Long Chen helped both of them up, and the primal chaos golden codex around him spun madly, blasting away the terrifying firepower around them. Soon, he brought both of them down the cave. Wait here, I'll go up and take a look. Long Chen turned around and left again. In the area of the 5 stone palaces, Long Chen went deeper, and with his divine telekinesis, he could clearly sense that the divine kings were beginning to die. Seeing this, Long Chen could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. If it weren't for these God-King level powerhouses attracting the attention of the flaming divine sparrow in the sky, the immeasurable monarch and the 9 treasures supreme emperor probably wouldn't have had a chance to survive, let alone reach the cave entrance. My body remains in these 5 stone palaces, and there are many broken treasures. The strange terrain here has actually condensed the 5 elemental origin spirits. The Emperor's remnant soul said. Long Chen looked at the terrifying flaming divine sparrow in the sky, and his expression changed slightly when he sensed the killing intent coming from all directions. The flaming divine sparrow in the sky had also sensed Long Chen's presence, and its intelligence was not low. This origin spirit can use its pure origin energy to suppress so many divine kings at the same time. How can we take it down? Long Chen asked. At this moment, he could already feel the origin energy in his body going berserk. If it wasn't for the primal chaos golden codex and the monarch lord's remnant soul, he would have been at the brink of death. These life forms of the origin have yet to condense their physical bodies. I will help you find their foundation and then break them. The sovereign lord's remnant soul said, this place is filled with the power of the 5 elements. The 5 elements counter each other, which will make your next move much simpler. Long Chen nodded and understood what the sovereign lord's remnant soul meant. Once the water and earth palaces were opened, water and fire would restrain each other. If he could use the Emperor Lord's remnant soul to find the location of the 2 origin seeds, he could easily defeat them. After knowing all this, Long Chen quickly rushed to the other side and said coldly, before that, let's get rid of some people first. Long Chen flew over. He had killed almost all the members of the Ghost Python clan in less than half an hour. With the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul, Long Chen was like dealing with a group of blind divine kings. It was extremely easy. Roar! Tian Dan crazily spewed out all the energy in his body. He was furious. Although he could not spread his divine thought, he could clearly sense that the people who came with him were dying one by one. It was all over. Long Chen rushed straight to the Water Stone Palace. At the same time, the flaming divine sparrow in the sky seemed to have sensed Long Chen's intention. All of a sudden, all of its energy surged toward Long Chen. He's not dead. Although the flaming divine sparrow had terrifying energy, it knew nothing about spells. Then, it shifted all its attention to Long Chen. The people from the other clans felt the pressure on them lessen. When they saw Long Chen, their expressions changed drastically. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Almost all the water beasts in the Black River had landed on him. Not to mention an early-stage divine king, even a middle-stage divine king would not be able to survive. Chi! The flaming divine sparrow roared and charged toward Long Chen. How dare you! Under everyone's gaze, Long Chen suddenly turned his head. His eyes emitted a terrifying light. It was as if he was looking down on the heavens. The flaming divine vermilion bird came to an abrupt halt as a hint of horror flashed through its intelligent eyes. Rumble. At the same time, a vast amount of water spirit gushed out from the stone palace. The azure blue water spirit energy instantly clashed with the flaming divine sparrow. Both of them were forcefully suppressed. Their auras began to plummet. Let's take the treasures in the 2 stone palaces. There must be countless treasures in the stone palaces for such creatures to be born here. It's enough to shake the heavens and earth. When the people around saw this, they did not have time to think about how Long Chen could open the water stone palace despite the flaming divine sparrow's suppression. The 2 origin source creatures had just weakened, so they did not have time to care about the people around them. The various forces began to fight as they madly charged toward the 2 stone palaces. They did not even look at Long Chen. A second-level God King was nothing in their eyes. Compared to these treasures, he was insignificant. Long Chen's eyes flashed as he looked at the flaming divine sparrow. Then, he turned into a ray of light and charged toward it. Rumble. Long Chen entered the flaming divine sparrow's chest. Under the powerful flames, his physical body disappeared. Only the part that had fused with the Divine Lord's remnant body remained. In the next instant, he grabbed a ball of flames. Roar! Roar! The flaming divine sparrow roared crazily. However, its aura was rapidly weakening. Long Chen did not even have time to reconstruct his physical body. He rushed toward the water spirit again. The water spirit energy was almost the same as the fire spirit energy. If he did not take advantage of the fact that the fire spirit energy had not completely dissipated, it would be even more difficult to obtain it. Just as the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul had said, with the power of his spirit, Long Chen had managed to obtain 2 pure source seeds. Although these 2 source seeds contain the Divine Lord's origin source energy, they had already turned into pure 5 elements energy. Long Chen's physical body quickly reformed. However, his brows were tightly knitted. The Divine Lord's remnant soul also started to think about how to completely fuse the source seeds with Long Chen's origin source to raise his cultivation level. More than 20 treasures. There are even treasures that are comparable to clan-suppressing artifacts. There are also 3 stone palaces. Who would have thought that such a strange place was hidden in the cloud-devouring valley? This is a heaven-made opportunity. If not for the 5-colored clouds, how could we have found this place? What is that? The 2 source seeds in his hands seemed to have been taken from the bodies of the 2 living beings. Everyone flew out of the stone palaces. There were less than 10 people left alive. However, each of them was glowing with treasures. Everyone looked at Long Chen in unison. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Tian Dan walked forward and sneered, "You are still alive. However, without you, we would not have been able to obtain so many treasures." Chapter 10:14. Long Chen did not make a move. The surrounding people took the lead and surrounded him, including those from the Zhuge Jinshan clan. Everyone knew that the 2 balls of light in Long Chen's hands were extraordinary. The leader of the Zhuge Jinshan clan said, "Hand over the 2 things, you are not qualified to receive them with your strength." Long Chen glanced at the 2 balls of source seeds in his hand when he saw that everyone was glaring at him covetously. A playful smile flashed across the corners of his mouth as he said, "If I don't hand them over, what do you want?" Tian Dan laughed loudly, as if he was amused by Long Chen's stubbornness. Tian Dan waved his hand and ordered the two people behind him, destroy his body and capture his soul. Since he is still alive, we will serve him well. As soon as Tian Dan said that, the two divine kings from the Ghost Python clan jumped out. The fact that the two of them could survive the attack of the powerful fire spirit Divine Sparrow was enough to show that they were level 3 divine kings. The two of them sneered and charged towards Long Chen. Long Chen looked at the murderous gazes around him and no longer had any intention of holding back. Originally, he wanted to spare the lives of the Zhuge Jinshan clan. No matter what the Zhuge Jinshan clan's intentions were, they had helped him in the Black River. But now, all of that had disappeared along with their murderous intent. The two level 3 divine kings rushed out and did not even bother to use their techniques. They directly attacked Long Chen with their most violent Source Divine Force. The boundless Source Divine Force was enough to suppress any ordinary level 2 divine king. Hong Long Long. As the two's attacks landed, Long Chen punched out with both fists at the same time. With one punch, he managed to send both of them flying. The huge amount of Source Divine Force shocked the two of them. This terrifying Source Divine Force is comparable to a level 4 divine king. The faces of the people around them also changed. No one thought that Long Chen had hidden his strength so deeply and possessed such terrifying combat strength. Hong Hong Hong. Yao Dan furrowed his brows as his god power surged like a tide. At the same time, the others unleashed their origin divine powers as they prepared to kill Long Chen and snatch the source seed from him. Seeing this, Long Chen shook his head. With his current battle prowess, facing so many God King stage level 4 experts at the same time, the outcome was still uncertain. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Long Chen swallowed the fire-type source seed in his hand. After the source seed entered his body, Long Chen's violent origin divine power started to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was a kind of violent and pure power. Even if a late God King tried to devour the energy like Long Chen, they would probably die. This origin energy has been completely changed. It can only be borrowed, but it can no longer be fused. When the origin energy entered his body, Long Chen finally understood what the Emperor Lord's remnant soul had said. This origin energy was completely different from the Imperial Lord origin energy in the aquatic beasts' bodies. These things could allow him to obtain unparalleled power in a short period of time, but once everything was over, the source seed's divine power of origin would completely disappear. 3rd level God King Realm. God King level 4. God King level 5. Long Chen's cultivation level suddenly increased by 3 levels. The terrifying pressure caused everyone around him to stand in a daze on the spot. Yao Dan and the others stared with their eyes wide open. No one expected Long Chen to undergo such a terrifying transformation after devouring one of the source seeds. This kind of increase in cultivation had already exceeded their imagination. When one's cultivation level reached the God King realm, there were very few secret techniques that could increase one's cultivation level. After all, it was extremely difficult to increase one level in the God King realm. Of course, Long Chen was not one of them. God King. Level 5? Yao Dan's body gradually retreated and his face was filled with fear. Let's attack together and kill this person. Otherwise, we will all die. The surrounding people nodded their heads and their faces turned pale. It was impossible for them to win against a God King level 5 if they were to fight alone. Swoosh! Just as Yao Dan finished his sentence, Long Chen had already disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already standing behind Yao Dan. Bang bang bang. Blood fell like rain and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. Yao Dan's divine soul fell into Long Chen's hands. Long Chen's origin energy was as turbulent as the sea and every trace of it contained an unprecedented blazing power. Slap! Yao Dan's divine soul was instantly crushed. Only the storage ring fell into Long Chen's hands. Long Chen slowly turned his head and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He said, "Now, is there anyone else who wants the source seed in my hands?" Everyone trembled. They did not expect Long Chen to be able to unleash such terrifying fighting power. In an instant, countless inherited divine skills and inherited battle skills were unleashed. They were not idiots. They knew that if they did not kill Longchen, they would not have a chance to live. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire underground space began to shake. At that moment, no one cared if the place would be destroyed. The people of the Zhuge Jinshan clan even crazily mobilized flawless formation runes from all directions to suppress Longchen. The ghost dragon swallows the heavens. The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan had already escaped. Looking at the incomparably violent divine power impact beneath their feet, all of them turned pale with shock. Before the two of them could speak, they saw a black light whizzing over from afar. It stopped right above the ghost python swallows the heavens. This person had a cold expression. She had long dark green hair and was extremely beautiful. There was a slender snake mark between her eyebrows. She stared at the immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan and frowned. She grabbed the air with her right hand and pulled the two of them in front of her. She asked in a deep voice, "How many people have entered this place? Are there any ghost pythons?" The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzan Dizuan looked bitter. They quickly said, "I've just arrived here. I don't know if there are any ghost pythons." Rumble, rumble, swish, swish. Just as the immeasurable monarch finished his nonsense, the ground began to rumble, and the entire ground collapsed. For streams of light turned into rainbows and soared into the sky. The violent origin energy instantly changed the color of heaven and earth. Longchen was one of the streams of light. However, the aura on his body was a little terrifying. He even had several Divine King-level divine souls in his hand. Bang, bang, bang. These divine souls were all crushed into powder in an instant. This scene was witnessed by the woman and the immeasurable emperor. They were both dumbfounded. The woman felt the violent aura of Longchen's Divine King level 5 and her expression changed slightly. She bowed slightly and said, "I'm Yao Yi from the Ghost Python clan. May I know who you are?" "Yao Yi?" A faint smile suddenly appeared on the corner of Longchen's mouth. Chapter 10-15. After Yao Yi Ji failed to capture Longchen, she had decided to personally kill Longchen. Along the way, she had heard that her uncle was also here, so she came to take a look. She had never imagined that she would actually encounter Longchen at this moment. In fact, what surprised her the most was Longchen's current cultivation. 5th level Divine King realm. His cultivation was almost the same as hers, which was completely different from the information she had received before. Yao Yi Ji directly pushed the immeasurable emperor and his uncle aside and subconsciously distanced herself from Longchen. Her divine aura was vast and mighty as 9 ghost pythons soared into the sky behind her. Each of them was tens of thousands of feet long, and the weather changed as they roared. The fact that she was able to bear the destiny of the ghost python clan showed how talented she was. Yao Yi Ji frowned, but her expression soon calmed down. She glanced at the other 3 rays of light and said, "The aura of the spiritual beings born from these 3 source seeds is very similar to yours. It seems that you haven't really reached 5th level Divine King realm." Longchen looked deeply at Yao Yi Ji and thought that she was indeed a smart person. She could tell that his cultivation wasn't his original strength in a short period of time. Swoosh, swoosh. Before Longchen made a move, the 3 source seeds had already flown into the distance. Longchen's expression changed. He didn't have time to pay attention to Yao Yi Ji and charged straight for the Earth-type source seed. These source seeds were formed from the Emperor Lord's remnant body. Although it was very likely that they couldn't be assimilated into his body to increase his cultivation, they were like miraculous pills that could allow Longchen to gain unparalleled strength in a short period of time. The ghost dragon's heaven-devouring land used the terrain to lure my remnant body here and turned it into the 5 elemental source seeds. You must do your best to capture them. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul instructed Longchen. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul was unwilling to give up on these source seeds. It seemed that he still wanted to find a way to let Longchen devour these source seeds to increase his cultivation. Yao Yi Ji watched as Longchen chased after one of the origin seeds. In the next moment, she also rushed towards the other. The fact that this source seed could raise Long Chen's cultivation to the 5th level of the Divine King realm was enough to show how terrifying it was. Naturally, Yao Yiji was not willing to let go of such an opportunity. The two of them turned into streaks of light and flew away. The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzang Dizun couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. They secretly thought that Yao Yiji didn't know the relationship between the two of them and Long Chen. Otherwise, they would have suffered even more today. The two of them followed closely in the direction of Long Chen. After an hour, Long Chen managed to capture the earth-based source seed. However, he gradually came to a halt and stopped in his tracks. This place was the sky above the ghost dragon swallowing the heavens. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul said to Long Chen, "The power that the fire source seed gave you will last for at most an hour before it completely dissipates. The source seed will also dissipate between heaven and earth." There was a hint of helplessness in his words. Long Chen also let out a long sigh. He came to the devouring cloud valley to look for the Emperor Lord's remnant body to raise his cultivation. However, he was slightly disappointed. The fact that this place was able to gather 5 source seeds was enough to show that the Emperor Lord's remnant body's source seed was definitely not weak. "Master, please take a look at the water and earth source seeds in the Dragon Palace for now. There might be other ways to remove the Emperor Lord's source seed." Long Chen kept all the source seeds in the Dragon Palace. The immeasurable emperor and Zhuzang Dizun had just arrived. When the immeasurable emperor saw that Long Chen had stopped, he said, "Why are you still standing here? Hurry up and chase after the other source seed. My fighting power will decrease in at most an hour." "There's not enough time," Long Chen replied. "Then hurry up and leave. When Yao Yiji returns, how are you going to be her match? An hour is enough." Just as Long Chen finished speaking, a rainbow flew over from afar. It was Yao Yiji. Yao Yiji was holding the wood source seed in her hands. There was a hint of excitement on Yao Yiji's cold face. It was obvious that she was extremely shocked by the source seed. "You are quite powerful. You managed to suppress the source seed in such a short time." Long Chen couldn't help but pay more attention to Yao Yiji. Yao Yiji snorted coldly and didn't say anything. However, she was extremely shocked as well. She was able to take down the source seed in such a short time and rush back here. She had paid a huge price to chase after the gold soul seed. She had even destroyed the defensive item that her clan had given her. However, her speed was still slower than Long Chen's. Yao Yiji saw that Long Chen's level 5 Divine King fighting power was still present. She snorted coldly and said, "I don't have time to waste with you here." After she finished speaking, she actually chose to ignore Long Chen and charge towards where the gold source seed had left. In an hour's time, no matter how fast the gold source seed was, it would definitely leave behind some traces. With her speed, she still had a chance of catching up to it. Although these source seeds possessed divine origin energy that could suppress mid-divine kings, they didn't know anything about spells. Naturally, their speed wouldn't be too fast. Bang! Yao Yiji had just rushed out when she felt a boundless divine power descending on her and forcing her to retreat. Long Chen stood in front of her and blocked her path. "I heard that you wanted to take my life because of the promise that Zhuge Ziyun owed me. Is that true?" Long Chen questioned. Yao Yiji frowned. Seeing that Long Chen actually wanted to block her, she knew that there was no hope for the gold source seed today. She said coldly to Long Chen, "So what if it is true? I originally wanted to slowly deal with you after obtaining the gold source seed. Now that you are courting death, you can't blame me. Do you really think that a person who relied on external help to reach the 5th layer of the Divine King realm can fight against me?" Yao Yiji's words were filled with confidence. Long Chen gradually felt the boundless fire origin energy in his body dissipating. He no longer hesitated. Today, regardless of whether he could defeat Yao Yiji, he had to fight her. At the very least, he couldn't let her take away the wood source seed in her hands. Azura whirling elephant. The Azura shadow immediately pressed down. In an instant, The weather changed and the firmament was suppressed. Yao Yiji's expression didn't change. The snake mark in between her eyebrows revolved and the 9 ghost pythons behind her transformed into a giant god with a human body and a python beast. Rumble. The 2 visualizations instantly clashed in the air, causing the clouds in all directions to move. In the next instant, Yao Yiji took the lead and attacked Longchen at an extremely fast speed. Longchen didn't retreat in the slightest and clashed with her. Violent origin energy covered the sky and covered the sun. The terrifying power of a divine king was enough to cause the land within a few 100,000 miles to tremble. The more Yao Yiji fought, the more shocked she became. Regardless of whether it was visualizations or spells, Longchen's visualizations were actually of a higher grade than her ghost python clan's. Chapter 10:16. Longchen did not hold back in his battle with Yao Yiji, which immediately caused a commotion. The members of the various god clans flew towards the location of the battle. The Zhuge Forbidden God Clan and the Lightning Dragon Grotto were the closest to this place, so they were the first to enter the cloud-devouring valley. When the 2 grotto heavens approached Longchen and Yao Yiji, they immediately felt an endless stream of origin divine power rushing towards them. The God King soared into the sky and stared in front of them in shock. 9 ghost pythons blotted out the sky as they crazily clashed with another person. The destructive aura caused the world to tremble. That's Yao Yiji of the Ghost Python clan. Why is she here? Which grotto is his opponent? The one who bears the mandate of heaven. Isn't he the one who stepped into the Forbidden God clan from the Forbidden God Water Marsh? Why is he at the 5th level of the God King realm? Yao Yiji wants to kill him. It probably has something to do with Zhuge Ziyun. The crowd discussed spiritedly. No one had expected Longchen to be able to fight Yao Yi of the Ghost Python Paradise to a standstill. Rumble. The starry clouds in the sky condensed out of thin air. Longchen grabbed at the air with his right hand, and the shadow of a halberd condensed and fell towards Yao Yiji. Although the halberd did not take shape, it emitted an endless suppressive force. The weapon in Yao Yiji's hand instantly shattered, and half of her body was crushed into powder. Seeing that the 2 parties were wary of each other and had yet to decide whether to attack or not, Longchen grabbed her storage ring and flew away, disappearing into the horizon. Yao Yiji stared at Longchen's departing figure from afar and was stunned. She turned to look at the half of her body that had been destroyed, and her eyes were gradually filled with gloomy murderous intent. Yao Yiji's body glowed like a waterfall. After her body reformed, she landed in front of the leader of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. Yao Yiji said in a deep voice, "This person came from the Forbidden God Yuze. Can we ask the Forbidden God clan to investigate him thoroughly? His battle prowess is truly terrifying." The leader of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan was a 5th-level God King. He immediately nodded when he heard Yao Yiji's words. News of the relationship between Zhuge Ziyun and Yao Yi had already spread throughout the clan. Moreover, although he was at the 5th level of the God King realm, even several of him would be no match for Yao Yiji. He missed her so much. However, this person also felt that Longchen was too terrifying. He was actually able to snatch the storage ring of an expert from Yao Yiji and even destroy half of his body. Yao Yiji did not say anything else. Instead, she charged towards the metal-type source seed. On the other side, Longchen's cultivation base quickly dissipated, but he was still moving at his fastest speed towards the border of the Zhuge Jinshan tribe. With the items that the immeasurable emperor had given him, the 3 of them quickly met up in a forest. "Let's enter the Forbidden God Water Swamp and leave the Grotto Heavens for now," Longchen said to the immeasurable emperor. This time, he had killed many people from the Grotto Heavens and snatched the item from Yao Yiji's hands. It would definitely cause a huge uproar. The only way to reduce the pressure was to leave this place. Facing the Zhuge Jinshan tribe alone was much easier than facing the people from the Grotto Heavens at the same time. When they arrived at the border of the Zhuge Jinshan tribe, they concealed their aura and did not move. After 6 hours, Elder Jing finally walked out of the tribe. "You should leave quickly. I'll send you through the Forbidden God water swamp. That's the territory of the Forbidden God tribe. The people from the other grotto heavens would not dare to step in rashly. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Longchen was still safe and sound. Longchen nodded slightly. The three of them changed their clothes under Elder Jin's suggestion and followed behind him. Under Elder Jin's lead, they walked straight into the Forbidden God water swamp. When you go to the Forbidden God water swamp, don't step into the territory of the grotto heavens. Even if you want to, it's best to take a detour. After Elder Jin reminded them, he handed a palm-sized formation flag to Longchen and turned around to leave. Longchen and the rest did not enter the Forbidden God water swamp. Only a few hours after they left, the Forbidden God tribe decided to thoroughly investigate Longchen's background. However, it was suppressed by Elder Jin in the name of Zhuge. Only a few days after the incident, the outside world was in an uproar because of what Longchen did in the cloud-devouring valley. The news that dozens of god kings from the various grotto heavens were killed, and even Yao Yeji was defeated, spread like wildfire. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. With the formation flag given by Elder Jin, Longchen walked through the Forbidden God water swamp as if he was walking on flat ground, and now he was in the people of Bai Yishen. Bai Yeshing and his people had never asked about Longchen and the others since they returned. Longchen had gone deep into the Red Moon and destroyed the Blood Moon well. Although Bai Tsang died in the hands of the patrolling god kings, Bai Yeshing was still alive. When the sun was setting, a white-haired old man, who reeked of alcohol, arrived at the mountain peak where Longchen and the others were. "Why you are Bai Yeshing?" Zhuzang Dizuan asked in a hoarse voice. The white-haired old man nodded with a wry smile, but Longchen's face was ghastly pale. Although the people of Bai Yishen failed to save the immeasurable emperor and Zhuzang Dizuan outside the Forbidden God water swamp, they had paid a terrible price. Bai Tsang was dead, and Bai Yeshing's essence was taken away. Looking at their faces, Bai Yeshing suddenly laughed and said, "It's just that all his essence has been taken away. How many more years can he live? Aren't you going to invite me in?" Even in the face of such a drastic change, he could still talk cheerfully without changing his mind. Longchen could not help but feel a little more respect for him. Inside the room, Bai Yeshing said to Longchen, "My people are indebted to all of you. If the Blood Moon well is opened, I'm afraid my people will be wiped out in the end. You can stay in my people for the next few days. If you need anything, just tell me. But, on the 15th of every month, please hide in my people's mystic realm." Although Longchen did not know why Bai Yeshing would do that, he still nodded. They knew very well that living in the people of Bai Yishen at this moment had put them under unprecedented pressure. Longchen gave Bai Yeshing a deep look and said, "I do have something that I need your help with. If you can find all these things, perhaps I can help you regain your essence." "Regain my essence?" Bai Yeshing shuddered when he heard that, but in a flash, he shook his head and said with a wry smile, "Now that things have come to this, please don't mention the matter of regaining my essence again. Just tell me what you need." Longchen did not show any sign of being pretentious. He directly handed over a jade slip he had prepared in advance to Bai Yeshing. After taking the jade slip, Bai Yeshing turned and left without checking it. Watching him leave, the immeasurable emperor said to Longchen in a deep voice, "Since I've come back, even if I have to leave, I must find a way to kill that God King patrolling formation and take back Bai Yeshing's essence and my storage ring." Chapter 10:17. Among the people of Bai Yishen, only a few god kings knew that Longchen was hiding in the clan. Although Longchen and the others lived on the mountain, they rarely showed up. A month passed in the blink of an eye. Longchen's cultivation base did not make any progress. On the contrary, the immeasurable emperor's cultivation base soared with the help of the rare treasures Longchen snatched from the cloud-devouring valley. Longchen personally crowned him, and in just a month, he had stepped into the venerable emperor realm. Even Zhuzang Dizuan was stunned by such a cultivation speed. On the other hand, Zhuzang Dizuan had also discovered Longchen's dependence on the sovereign emperor's body. Without it, his cultivation speed was extremely slow. Of course, the word slow was in comparison to Long Chen's freakish cultivation speed. In fact, even without the sovereign emperor's body, Long Chen's cultivation speed was already considered a genius compared to other cultivators. Long Chen and the other two arrived at the people of Baiyishan on the 16th of the month. Now, a month had passed, and it was the middle of the month. Before the sun came out, Baiyishing personally led Long Chen and the others into the mystic realm. Long Chen and the others had asked him several times, but Baiyishing never told them why. After Baiyishing left, the immeasurable emperor said, "I've left something that can tell us why we have to hide on the 15th. Do you want to take a look?" Long Chen looked at the dozen or so herbs of 5 elements in his hand and nodded. Over the past month, Baiyishing had found 3 of the items mentioned in the jade slip for him, and he did not complain at all. Each of these items was priceless. "Let's take a look. Maybe they are the ones who are in trouble." Long Chen had a bad feeling in his heart. The immeasurable emperor nodded. His right hand kept sketching in the air, and then he suddenly slapped it. A faint divine power turned into an illusory picture in the air. The 3 of them could clearly see that the illusory picture came from the eyes of a bird. It seemed simple, but it was very complicated to not be discovered. The bird flew away. The 3 of them watched as a large number of the people of Baiyishan began to gather in the center. This wait lasted for 4 hours. Long Chen's eyes narrowed suddenly, and his face turned cold. In the illusory picture, 5 array flags came whistling through the air, filling the sky with bright light. They were the spirits of the 5 immeasurable formation. There was no way Long Chen was mistaken. The spirit soul of the fire-type array flag had once fallen into his hands. There was no sound, but the next moment, the 3 immeasurable immortals' eyes. The spirits of the 5 void soul array flags looked greedy and playful as they swept through the day-night god clan in a frenzy. Streaks of source energy whizzed out and were devoured by it. Their powers eyes gods spirits gods of their of Shin's, spirit was of theirs of a Chen of their of Bai Chen's their of them. It was as if their divine power had been taken away, and their vitality was gone in a flash. Their appearance was somewhat similar to Baiyishing's. Long Chen's face was livid, but he knew the Divine King patrolling Array's cultivation base very well. He was indeed a late-stage Divine King. Long Chen looked at the elixir Baiyishing had just given him and shook his head hard. But now, it seemed that if he delayed it, the people of Baiyishan would suffer countless casualties. Long Chen watched from the sidelines. "Master, can you use the items on the 3rd floor to refine a type of source seed first?" Staring at the miserable state of the people of Baiyishan in the illusory image, he asked the Emperor's remnant soul in his mind. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul pondered for a moment before he suddenly said, "Initially, I didn't have a solution. However, I do now. If this method works, the people of Baiyishan's crisis should be resolved. When that happens, you should be able to kill the patrolling Divine King once you reach the 6th level of the Divine King realm." Long Chen's face relaxed a little when he heard this. He was about to ask a question, but he stopped himself. His gaze gradually landed on the 5 spirit souls of the array flags. Long Chen knew very well that the items in the jade slip were either precious medicines or ores of 5 elements. The Monarch Lord's remnant soul originally planned to use the 5 elemental origin divine power to perform some sort of reversal technique, causing the source seed to once again split between the Monarch Lord's origin and the 5 elemental origin divine power. How could a large number of 5 elemental ores and precious medicines be compared to the 5 spirit souls of the array flags? The 5 spirit souls of the array flags are all nourished by the 5 elemental Dao runes. Although they are not as good as the 5 spirit souls of the 5 elemental Dao runes, they achieve the same result through different means. If we can capture all of them, the effect may not be any worse than the precious medicines and ores. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul explained to Long Chen. Long Chen took a deep breath and nodded in agreement. "However," he said, "we have to plan this carefully. If we seize the 5 array flags now, I'm afraid the patrolling Divine King will definitely turn all his attacks to the people of Baiyishan." Seeing that the 5 spirit souls of the array flags had devoured enough and were about to fly away, Long Chen's pupils suddenly shrank. However, he did not make any move in the end. In fact, it was not difficult for Long Chen to seize the 5 spirit souls of the array flags. Although the spirit souls of the array flags were like divine souls, they were, after all, just magical artifacts. Without anyone controlling them, Long Chen could easily seize them with the help of the Monarch Lord's remnant soul and the power of a peak second-tier God King. The shadows faded away, but the entrance to the mystic realm did not open. After a few hours, Bai Yeshing finally opened the door and signaled Long Chen to return to the mountain. Looking at Bai Yeshing's expressionless face, Long Chen felt more and more guilty. Even though the people of Bai Yishan were facing such a great calamity, they were still trying their best to find these items for him. Long Chen and the others were led back to the mountain by Bai Yeshing. Although the clan was in chaos, they did not reveal anything. It was obvious that Bai Yeshing did not want Long Chen and the others to know about the 5 spirit souls of the array flags. You can keep them here. I'll find all the 5th grade spirit souls you need in 3 months at most. Bai Yeshing said to Long Chen with a smile, as if these things were not difficult to find. Long Chen took a deep breath and slowly rose to his feet. With a wave of his hand, beams of divine power sealed off the whole area. He turned to Bai Yeshing and said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency has treated us so well, and we are ashamed. We can't wait for 3 months, and neither can the people of Bai Yishan. Your Excellency, are you willing to trust me one more time? I promise I'll wipe out everything for the people of Bai Yishan." Long Chen's words were arrogant, but they were also full of confidence. Chapter 10:18. Bai Yeshing interrupted Long Chen. Before Long Chen could continue, he continued, "When I saw you that day, your cultivation base was only at the sovereign realm. But now, you have reached the peak of the 2nd tier of the God King realm in such a short time. I have never heard of such a fast improvement in your cultivation base. But the patrolling God King is under the command of the Zhuge Jinshan clan, and he has been guarding the Forbidden God Water Marsh for generations. If you kill him, you will definitely have a grudge with the Zhuge Jinshan clan." Bai Yeshing did not ask how Long Chen could improve his cultivation base so quickly in such a short time. He only knew that Long Chen alone could not be a match for the Zhuge Jinshan clan, a powerful force in one of the 32 paradise. After that, he turned and was about to leave, not wanting to talk to Long Chen anymore. Long Chen's figure flashed and stopped him. "I only want your clan to protect themselves from the patrolling God King for 3 months. After that, I'll take responsibility for everything. At that time, I'll leave this place and go to the territory of the paradise." Bai Yeshing froze on the spot, staring into Long Chen's eyes with a frown. After a long while, he said, "Have you really thought it through?" Long Chen nodded. He knew it was indeed a little risky, but he had to do it. Otherwise, it would cost him a lot of time, and even the people of Bai Yishan would suffer unimaginable damage. Bai Yeshing knew very well that Long Chen was not a fool. So, he nodded and left Long Chen's place. Seeing that, Long Chen breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he turned to the people of Bai Yishan and said, "You too stay with the people of Bai Yishan. You must help the people of Bai Yishan defend the patrolling God King." The immeasurable emperor had reached the sovereign realm, and he should become a sovereign. But when he and the Zhuzangduzuan heard Long Chen's idea, they felt that there was no way they could intervene. So, they asked Long Chen about his plan. When they heard that Long Chen intended to seize the spirit souls of the 5 array flags, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The patrolling Divine King was a late-stage Divine King, while Long Chen was only a peak level 2 Divine King. It was clear how dangerous this was. Can you really break through to the 6th or 7th stage of the Godly King realm before the people of Bai Yishan suffer the wrath of the patrolling Godly Kings? The immeasurable emperor couldn't help but ask. Long Chen didn't reply. He just turned around and left, disappearing into the horizon. Long Chen left the people of Bai Yishan without alerting anyone from the people of Bai Yishan. He relied on the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul to sense the 5 elements aura left behind by the 5 array flags. These 5 array flag spirits did not return to where the patrolling Divine King was. Instead, they went to the Red Moon. Longchen raised his eyebrows and followed the violet aura left behind by the spirits. In less than 10 hours, Longchen had already found the traces of the array flag spirits. However, he didn't immediately make a move. The 5 array flag spirits didn't move very quickly. They leisurely arrived at the red moon. Then, they began to seize the origin energy. In the following month, the 5 array flag spirits devoured the origin energy of 5 god tribe members. This is much better. Even if I seize the 5 array flag spirits, the patrolling Divine King won't attack the people of Baishan immediately. Longchen let out a long sigh of relief. The 5 array flag spirits finally set foot on the path back to where the patrolling Divine King was. Longchen was finally ready to make a move. In the sky above the mountain forest, the 5 array flag spirits swayed around contentedly. They even laughed and chatted from time to time. It was obvious that they were very happy to devour the origin energy of the 5 god tribe members. Rumble. While the 5 array flag spirits were chatting, a huge wave of divine spirit energy suddenly suppressed them. The vast divine spirit energy was like a violent storm. It instantly shattered the clouds in the surrounding thousands of miles and swept out boundless airwaves. 5 deafening booms landed on the ground, causing the mountains to crack and rivers to overturn. The 5 array flag spirits released a monstrous pressure at the same time. The 5 elemental array pattern instantly merged and alternated. It stretched for thousands of miles and rushed into the sky, surrounding Longchen. Who dares to sneak attack us? Damn it! What a powerful soul power! My spirit soul is about to be shattered. The spirits of the 5 array flags rose up and instantly surrounded Longchen in the center. The Earth array flag spirit recognized Longchen at a glance. His expression changed and he subconsciously retreated a few steps. The Earth array flag spirit stared at Longchen and said in a trembling voice, "Why are you here? What do you want?" Before Longchen could say anything, the other 4 array flag spirits suddenly remembered Longchen. The 4 array flag spirits sneered and said, "What are you afraid of? Now that all 5 of us array flag spirits have gathered, we're afraid of an early-stage God King. First, form the soul-suppressing array and prevent his powerful soul energy from spreading. Then, use the 5 elemental array pattern to crush him." The Earth array flag spirit heaved a sigh and shook his head fiercely. In an instant, the 5 elemental array pattern turned into rays of light and fell on Longchen. The 5 array flag spirits released their divine origin energy. Countless Tao patterns that could be seen with the naked eye circulated around the spirit as if they were connecting heaven and earth. Although Longchen's expression did not change, he was extremely shocked. The divine origin energy of each of the 5 array flag spirits was at the mid-stage God King realm. They could even form countless 5 elemental array pattern in an instant. Their combat strength was extremely terrifying. When the 5 array flag spirits worked together, they were not weaker than any mid-stage God King. They could even suppress a late-stage God King. Buzz. The Tao patterns of the array flag spirits gathered and fell on Longchen like raindrops. However, Longchen did not move at all. Longchen's clothes turned into powder. A mysterious rune was carved on his chest and abdomen with fresh blood. The rune flowed as if it was going to break Longchen's body and escape. The 5 elemental array pattern stopped 10 meters away from Longchen. Longchen's body flashed and he stood in front of the Earth array flag spirit. He immediately suppressed it in his hand. What kind of Tao pattern is this? It can actually suppress all the array flag spirits. Run! This person is prepared. He's not afraid of us. The faces of the 5 array flag spirits changed drastically. They turned into rainbows and were about to break through the sky. Seal! As soon as Longchen's voice fell, streaks of blood runes broke out of his chest and abdomen, directly suppressing the other 4 formation flags. With a grab of his right hand, he captured all of them. I hope the source seeds are worth the sacrifice. Longchen caught the 5 array flags and quickly left. The blood patterns on his chest also disappeared in an instant. His cultivation dropped from the peak of the 2nd stage God King realm to the early stage God King realm. On the other side, deep in the palace, the patrolling Divine King spat out mouthfuls of blood uncontrollably. His face was extremely pale. Chapter 10:19. The patrolling God King was burning with anger. Since he took over the Forbidden God Watermarsh, he had been refining the spirits of the 5 array flags day and night, and he had even asked many experts in his clan to engrave the array of 5 elements for them. He never expected that the connection with the 5 array flags would be cut off at the same time today. The patrolling God King flew away and spread the news, asking the patriarchs of various clans to gather in the Red Moon. In just 3 days, all the clans were in danger, especially the 5 clans whose essences had been devoured, including the people of Baishen. When they heard that the spirits of the 5 array flags had been taken away, they were all terrified. If the patrolling God King blamed them for this, it would be a disaster. Inside the people of Baishen, Baisheng was slumped on the table with a wry smile on his face. He never thought that Longchen would take away the spirits of the 5 array flags. Longchen, Longchen. Who are you? Baisheng slowly rose to his feet and murmured. All the people of Baishen who had some status had gathered in the Great Hall. Many of them did not even know that Longchen and his companions had been hiding in the people of Baishen all this time. Of course, even the few God Kings who knew Longchen did not think that Longchen was behind this. How could a second-tier God King suppress the spirits of the 5 array flags? If the spirits of the 5 array flags unleashed all the power of the array, they could even wipe out a force like the people of Baishen. Patriarch, the other 4 clans, including the Red Moon, have sent a message that they will not allow the patrolling God King to enter their clans. They all know that the patrolling God King is extremely greedy. Whether it is our clans or not, they will definitely attack us. Our 5 clans have been robbed of our essences for months. If something like this happens again, it will definitely affect our foundation. Baisheng also heard the discussions among the crowd. He pondered for a moment, then said, "Activate the defensive array and seal all the eyes of the array. Try your best to stop the patrolling God King." On the other side, Longchen didn't return to the people of Baishen after obtaining the spirit of the 5 array flags. Instead, he went straight into the Forbidden God Swamp. The Divine King patrolling formation would never have thought that Longchen would be in the God-forbidding Watermarsh. Within the Forbidden God Watermarsh, Longchen went deep inside, as if he had entered an uninhabited land. Longchen took out the water, wood, and earth array flags. After the 3 formation flags appeared, all of their faces were extremely lifeless. However, the origin energy around them did not weaken at all. The Emperor's remnant soul said in a deep voice, "The 3 array flags correspond to the 3 types of source seeds. I hope that the reverse source technique that I have been researching during this period of time will be effective." Longchen was a little stunned when he heard this. He never thought that this method would be deduced by the Emperor Lord's remnant soul. As Longchen's cultivation level increased, the Emperor Lord's remnant soul became more and more compatible with the chaotic Golden Codex. He also became more and more condensed. However, deducing the divine arts like this would probably put a huge burden on him. After all, he was not the real Emperor Lord's divine soul. He was merely an obsession. However, it could be seen that the Emperor Lord's remnant soul valued these source seeds. The Emperor Lord's origin energy contained within them was definitely not small. The 3 formation flags' spirit souls dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye. They gradually turned into a ball of blinding light. The ball of light was filled with Tao patterns. Every pattern seemed to be compatible with the formation flags. They represented a 5 elements formation. Rumble. Within the blinding light formed by the 3 formation flags' spirit souls, streaks of black light suddenly appeared out of thin air. Longchen stared at the streaks of black light. He could not help but take a few steps back. The black light made his hair stand on end. He only felt that there was a terrifying power that he had never felt before. This is the inextinguishable Tao Law power. Longchen finally recalled this feeling. It was the same aura that the Red Moon had when she had violated the inextinguishable Tao Law's oath. The black light turned into divine lightning and instantly entered the three source seeds. The earth source seed, water source seed, and wood source seed started to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. What replaced it was the Emperor Lord's origin energy that caused Long Chen's heart to tremble. The inextinguishable Tao Law was relying on the formation flag's spirit souls to activate the source seeds and reverse the origin energy. Time passed by minute by minute. Long Chen kept pacing back and forth. He watched as the three source seeds gradually transformed into the Emperor Lord's origin energy. He only felt that time was passing by like years. The vast Emperor Lord's origin energy almost caused Long Chen's blood to flow faster. The parts of his body that had once merged with the Emperor Lord's remnant soul emitted a terrifying blood-red light that complemented the Emperor Lord's origin energy. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul could not help but say excitedly, "This effort is not in vain." The origin energy transformed by these three source seeds will probably allow you to directly step into the late-stage God-King realm. Second-stage God-King realm directly into the late-stage God-King realm. Long Chen's body could not help but tremble a little. Stepping into the late-stage God-King realm from early-stage God-King realm in such a short time was a realm that some people would never be able to achieve in their entire lives. Even in the 32 paradises and 16 blessed lands, no one had ever seen such a terrifying speed of advancement. Long Chen took a deep breath and stabilized the surging emotions in his heart. He said solemnly, "After this, I'm afraid that I can no longer hide the fact that I'm Master's disciple. The prophecy of the Heaven's Fate Palace will be known by everyone once again. The 32 paradises and 16 blessed lands will probably become an obstacle to my advancement." The Emperor Lord's remnant soul did not say anything. He knew that Long Chen's words were not wrong. However, Long Chen should also know that this day would come sooner or later. His cultivation speed was simply too fast. In just a few years, he had already surpassed the realm that many people would need to spend their entire lives to achieve. Long Chen's appearance would definitely cause the already chaotic ancient sacred divine world to become even more chaotic. Since I've chosen you, you'll have chosen this path. This path may seem smooth, but it's also filled with killing intent. If the heavens and earth stop you, then you'll have to step on countless bones to ascend to the Emperor Lord's position and reorganize the ancient sacred divine world for Master. The ancient sacred divine Emperor's voice was vast and mighty. As he spoke, even the inextinguishable Tao Law that was reversing the origin trembled. Long Chen suddenly laughed and said, "I haven't seen Master's wives yet. How can I die in the central region of the paradises and blessed lands? If the ancient sacred divine world stops me, I'll destroy it on behalf of Master. If the experts in this world are my enemies, I'll slaughter them all on behalf of Master. In the future, I'll be the enemy of the entire 10 heavens and the corpse world. So what if the ancient sacred divine world comes again today? Today, I no longer have a sword in my hand. However, the halberd in my hand can still kill all enemies in the world." Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul was deep in Long Chen's divine soul dragon palace. For a moment, he and Long Chen laughed at the same time. Chapter 10:20. The patrolling God King was infuriated. He never thought that the 5 godly clans would activate the protective formation together and seal the formation cores. The 5 godly clans were silent as if they were shrouded in dark clouds. They all knew that even if they sealed the formation cores, they couldn't stop the patrolling God King for long. In the end, the clan-protecting formation would be destroyed within 2 to 3 months because there was no follow-up power. They only wanted to tell the patrolling God King that they wouldn't compromise this time. They wouldn't continue to suffer the pressure of having their origin stolen. The 5 godly clans all knew how furious the patrolling God King would be when the 5 formation flag spirits were stolen. But if their origin continued to be stolen, their clans would fall into decline. That was why the 5 godly clans used such a forceful method to express their anger. The patrolling God King was furious, but he couldn't figure out who could suppress the 5 formation flag spirits in such a short time. While the 5 godly clans were anxious, the patrolling God King spent half a month searching outside the Forbidden God Marsh, but he didn't find any trace of a late-stage God King. In the end, the patrolling God King chose to pass through the Forbidden God Marsh and report to the Juga Forbidden God clan. The Juga Forbidden God clan couldn't do anything. Instead, the higher-ups of the clan scolded the patrolling God King. The 5 formation flags were extremely powerful artifacts. The person who could suppress them was at least a 7th-stage God King or 9th-stage God King. It was a dereliction of duty that he didn't notice such an expert near the Forbidden God Marsh. Who could suppress the 5 formation flag's spirits in such a short time? Why can't I find any trace of them? Is the person suppressing the spirits not a late-stage God King? The patrolling deity king arrived at the Forbidden God Rain Lake of the Juga Forbidden God race and planned to leave. Swoosh swoosh. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked at the heavenly soldier from afar. A gray light swept through the air. When he saw who it was, he immediately cupped his fists and said, "Greetings, Lady Yao Yi of the Ghost Python clan." Although the patrolling God King rarely returned to the Juga Forbidden God clan, he knew that Yao Yi was about to marry Zhuge Ziyun. Yao Yeji was the Ghost Python clan's chosen one and even had the chance to step into the God Emperor realm. Naturally, he did not dare to slight her. Yao Yeji walked to the side of the patrolling God King, her expression cold as she indifferently asked, "When were the spirits of the 5 flags lost?" The patrolling God King did not know why Yao Yi dared to ask such a question, but he still replied, "Half a month ago. Did Miss Yao Yi know a thing or two about it?" Yao Yeji's brows were tightly furrowed. She did not say anything for a long time, as if she was thinking about something. She originally wanted the Zhuge Jinshan clan to investigate Long Chen's background, but in the end, she was suppressed by Elder Jin using Zhuge Ziyun's name. However, during this period of time, she had used the power of her clan and was still able to figure out about 70% to 80% of Long Chen's background. Yao Yeji did not say anything, but the patrolling God Kings did not dare to leave either. They only stood to the side. "Do you know that Long Chen disappeared from the territories of the various grotto heavens over a month ago? If I've guessed correctly, he should have passed through the God-forbidding water marsh." Yao Yeji only spoke again after 15 minutes. The patrolling God King was stunned when he heard that. Then he shook his head and laughed. "Miss Yao Yeji, don't tell me you think the loss of the spirits of the 5 flags has something to do with him? He's an early God King at most. Even if he's extremely skilled, suppressing a single flag is already his limit. Let alone taking all 5 flags in such a short amount of time, it's impossible for an early God King to do such a thing." Yao Yeji frowned slightly, but she said with a deep voice, "What if I told you that he came from the Northern Foot realm and was only an emperor during the court examination after he set foot in the central continent? Would you still think it's impossible?" The patrolling God King was surprised when he heard that, but he still shook his head. "It's not that I don't know about this. After all the God clans participating in the court examination are under my control. He should have been a God King in the first place." However, his voice came to an abrupt halt as soon as he finished speaking. Yao Yeji waved her right hand and streaks of light appeared. To no surprise, it was the scene of her clash with Long Chen. Yao Yeji stared at the figure of light and said with a deep voice, "If he's a God King in the first place, it's probably not as simple as an early God King." The patrolling God King stared at the light in the sky blankly as shock filled his face. He had already returned to the other side of the Forbidden God Yuze when Yao Yeji and Long Chen fought, so he obviously did not know about it. Yao Yeji was a mid-God King, and she was the daughter of the patriarch of the Ghost Python clan. She was extremely powerful. The patrolling God King's face gradually darkened as he said with a deep voice, "If this person can erupt with battle prowess comparable to a mid-God King and use some other methods, he does have a chance of accomplishing all of this." Yao Yeji nodded. She stared at the patrolling God King and said, "Let's not talk about whether he's the culprit. I want you to find him." The patrolling God King stared at Yao Yeji and finally nodded. If Long Chen was really on the other side of the Forbidden God Swamp, he would not be at ease if he did not find him. Before the patrolling God King turned around, he transmitted his voice to Yaoyeji, to kill or not to kill? Kill! After the patrolling God King left, several streaks of light descended from the sky behind Yaoyeji and bowed behind her. Yaoyeji said with a deep voice, "Follow him through the forbidden God swamp. I want that person to have no chance of surviving." The more Yaoyeji investigated Longchen, the more uneasy she felt. She only wanted to end everything. The three God Kings were covered in runes. They were members of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. They nodded in response, but before they left, they said, "Miss Yaoyeji, don't forget your promise to us." Yaoyeji snorted coldly, "Don't worry. Zhuge listens to everything I say now." The patrolling God King passed through the Forbidden God swamp in a straight line. In just 5 days, he returned to the other side of the Forbidden God swamp and headed towards the people of Baiyishen. He knew about the relationship between Longchen and the people of Baiyishen. As long as Longchen came here, he would definitely be hiding among the people of Baiyishen. However, the patrolling God King did not know that Longchen had discovered every time he passed through the Forbidden God swamp. He did not know that Longchen was in the Forbidden God swamp. In the sky above the people of Baiyishen. When everyone saw the patrolling God King standing outside the formation, they all broke out in cold sweat. The patrolling God King's divine power filled the sky. He stood above the formation and began to bombard it without saying a word. The people of Baiyishen's mountains shook and palaces collapsed. Vast divine power almost covered the sky above. Buzz! The patrolling God King statues flew over and suppressed the people in all directions. Chapter 1021. Many people in the people of Baiyishen turned pale. No one had expected that the patrolling God King would attack the people of Baiyishen first. The 5 God clans had activated their defensive arrays at the same time, but only the people of Baiyishen were suppressed by the patrolling God King. Longchen was nowhere to be found. Many people in the people of Baiyishen exchanged glances. No one had expected that the patrolling God King would come here for Longchen. Longchen? Why is the patrolling God King looking for Longchen? Could it be that this man has suppressed the spirits of the 5 array flags? This man is the guy who once made a name for himself in the Red Moon. How is this possible? How can this man suppress the spirits of the 5 array flags? Many people behind the patrolling God King, who had not participated in the matter, looked from afar. When they heard the name Longchen, they all shook their heads. In their opinion, it was impossible for Longchen to do this. Bam! 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 While the crowd was talking, many young men and children with low cultivation bases were crushed into powder under the powerful suppressive force. Cries and screams could be heard everywhere. When the people of Baiyishen saw this, all the experts above the venerable emperor realm quickly exerted their divine power to resist the suppressive force from the outside world. Wrapped in the divine power of 2 God Kings, Baiyishen soared into the sky. He bowed and looked at the patrolling God King and said respectfully, "Are you really going to wipe out my clan today, God King?" Baiyishen did not explain whether Longchen was in the people of Baiyishen or not. He knew very well that whether Longchen was in the clan or not, once the defensive array was broken, the people of Baiyishen would be wiped out. Now that the 5 God clans had activated their defensive arrays, the patrolling God King would be safe if he turned a blind eye. But if he attacked, he would definitely kill the chicken to warn the monkey. The patrolling God King sneered and said in a deep voice, "If you hand over Longchen's whereabouts, perhaps I can spare your clan's main bloodline." Baiyishen suddenly laughed and shook his head. He slowly raised his right hand and said to the people of Baiyishen behind him, "If Longchen is in our people of Baiyishen, are you willing to hand him over?" The scene fell silent for a moment. In just 100 breaths, 7 or 8 Emperor Realm Masters stood out from the crowd and shouted, "Even if Longchen is here, we, the people of Baiyishen, will live and die with him. I will live and die with him. Live or die together." As the 7 of them spoke, a few God Kings stepped forward. Then, their voices swept through the entire people of Baiyishen like a tidal wave. Ever since the battle at the Blood Moon Well, the people of Baishan had regarded Longchen as the benefactor of their clan. How could they be so ungrateful? If they had betrayed him, they would not have risked becoming enemies with the patrolling Divine Kings to save Longchen. Baitsang would not have died, and Baiyeshing would not have been crippled. The more the people of Baishan hated the patrolling Divine Kings, the more anger they felt in their hearts. Even an idiot could tell by now that the patrolling godly monarch would not give them a way out. First, there was the battle at the Blood Moon Well, and then there was the suppression of their source energy. Even after this incident, the people of Baishan still had to struggle at death's door. Now that things had come to this, they were no longer willing to endure it. Apart from the people of Baishan, the other deities who were watching from afar were also silent. They could only shake their heads and sigh. The patrolling Divine King stared at the people of Baishan and felt that his authority had been challenged like never before. He was so angry that he laughed and shouted, "I'd like to see how long your guardian array, which has sealed the array core, can last." As soon as the patrolling Divine Kings finished speaking, they began to bombard the array core. The people of Baishan had gathered in one place, and all of them looked like they were about to die. Immeasurable Sovereign and the people of Baishan, who were deep in Juzang Dizuan's heart, were also shocked by the scene. Juzang Dizuan could not help but ask, can Longchen really have the combat strength to suppress the patrolling Divine Kings in such a short time? Juzang Dizuan stared blankly at the terrifying pressure of the patrolling Divine Kings in the sky. The combat strength of a late-stage Divine King was fully displayed, and the patrolling statues were enough to shake the heavens and earth. The Day-Night God Clan's mighty protective array formation was boundless, but under his bombardment, it seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Immeasurable Sovereign did not say anything. He did not even have the slightest intention of answering. At this moment, even he felt a little weak in his heart. Time passed by slowly. The patrolling Divine King's attacks did not weaken for a single day. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were constantly pounding on the people of Baishan's guardian array. Day and night alternated. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Inside the people of Baishan, a few Divine Kings had almost drained all their divine power, but the guardian array was now less than 30,000 miles wide. Many people of Baishan began to die. When the patrolling Divine King saw that, he burst out laughing and stared at Baiyeshing. Is it really worth it to sacrifice so much for one Longchen? If all of you kneel down and beg for mercy now, and tell Longchen to come to me, I can still spare the lives of your main clan. Although Baiyeshing had no cultivation base at the moment, his eyes suddenly turned cold as he stared at the patrolling Divine King. Patrolling Divine King, do you really think we, the people of Baishan, are all idiots? Longchen once said that if he returns, he will kill you for our people. Perhaps we, the people of Baishan, won't be able to wait for that day, but I believe it will come eventually. Only now did Baiyeshing realize how stupid it was for him to refuse Longchen's proposal for the first time. He was glad that Longchen had forced him to make a decision. The patrolling Divine King was like a poisonous snake. In the eyes of this snake, the people of Baishan were like eggs that would be swallowed sooner or later. Whether Longchen returned or not, he had given them another way to survive. Therefore, whether the people of Baishan were wiped out or not, he would not blame Longchen. Today, as the patriarch of the people of Baishan, I hereby invite the people of Baishan to show us the foundation of our people. Baiyeshing's voice was loud, and his face was filled with madness. Although we, the people of Baishan, are not a paradise sect, we cannot be so calm even if our people are wiped out. Rumble. Countless people of Baishan knelt on the ground with a determined look on their faces. Suddenly, the ground of the people of Baishan cracked, and the silver light above the many palaces rolled backward as boundless divine power poured into the ground. A white sun rose into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the whole world was covered in white snow. Amidst the white sun, an old man in a white robe with fluttering white hair slowly opened his eyes. When the patrolling Divine King saw that, he frowned slightly, but he still cried out coldly, "You are just a late-stage God King. Are you going to fight me?" Although the old man had surprised him a little, he did not take him seriously since he had the patrolling statue. The old man just shook his head, then turned into thousands of white runes of the Tao and rushed into Bai Yesheng's body. Bai Yesheng's life force was circulating, but his aura was climbing at a terrifying speed. With his white hair fluttering in the wind, Bai Yesheng fixed his eyes on the patrolling Divine King and said, "Today, I'll wait for his return with my life. If heaven has eyes, let me watch him kill you here with my own eyes." Chapter 1022. The people of Bai Yishan had used the foundation of the God race to completely break off their relationship with the patrolling God King. A late-stage God King was able to make the people of Bai Yishan stand tall in this place and be feared by all the clans. But now that they had used their foundation, the clan was about to come to an end. For a moment, many God race clans in the surroundings could not help but sigh. After the patrolling God King took charge of the many God race clans near the Forbidden God Marsh, he had been oppressing them for a long time. But now that the people of Bai Yishan had fallen to such a state, they could not help but feel a little sad. Rumble. The patrolling God King was not angry at all when he saw that the formation had regained its divine power. Instead, he continued to bombard it with attacks again and again. The patrolling statue moved back and forth, and endless killing formations rose and fell one after another. The patrolling God King glanced at the somewhat deranged Bai Yisheng with a playful look. He suddenly found it very funny and said, "Do you really think that Longchen can be my enemy? I'd like to see what kind of means he has to fight me in 2 or 3 months." The patrolling God King's words were full of confidence. His late-stage God King cultivation base and patrolling statue made him very confident. The patrolling God King seemed to have the intention of torturing the people of Bai Yishan. Instead, his attacks slowed down. He seemed to want to force Longchen to appear here, which saved him a lot of effort. Day after day. Even with Bai Ye's foundation, the defensive formation of the people of Bai Yishan only lasted for 1.5 months under the patrolling statue. On this day, the patrolling God King suddenly stopped the divine power in his hand and stopped the killing formations that the patrolling statue kept releasing. His eyes were looking at the Forbidden God Marsh in the distance. At this moment, he could clearly feel that the formations in the Forbidden God Marsh were being impacted by a powerful origin force. The patrolling God King waved his right hand, and shadows of formations appeared in the sky. In the shadow, Longchen had already rushed out of the Forbidden God Water Marsh and was flying towards the people of Bai Yishan. Seeing this, the patrolling God King laughed unscrupulously. He summoned back all the patrolling statues, gave Bai Yesheng a mocking look, and said, "When his blood has dyed the array of the people of Bai Yishan red, I'll make all of you die in despair." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. No one had thought that Longchen would really side with the people of Bai Yishan. More and more Protoss gathered in the people of Bai Yishan and watched from afar. The patrolling God Kings seemed to be very happy for them to come. "Do you really think you are a big shot? After I kill you, I'll figure out what is so strange about you that you can break through so crazily, Buzz." As soon as the patrolling God King's voice trailed off, one patrolling statue after another fell in all directions around Longchen. Each of the patrolling statues had an unfathomable power, and countless runes of the Tao of Arrays were intertwined on them. Boundless divine light surged in all directions, and killing intent enveloped Longchen like it was tangible. Mountains within a radius of 1,000 kilometers around Longchen were pulverized, and countless killing formations appeared in the air. It was a terrifying scene. At the same time, the patrolling God King grabbed at the air with his right hand, and a black iron spear appeared in his hand. The spear trembled in his hand, and 10,000 bolts of purple lightning surged. In the blink of an eye, it was thrown at Longchen, causing the weather to change wherever it passed. Hiss! Such a scene caused everyone in the surroundings to gasp. No one had expected the patrolling God King to use such a terrifying killing move right off the bat. Under the support of the patrolling statues, these attacks were probably enough to kill most mid-stage God Kings. Longchen stood where he was, and his expression did not change. He grabbed at the air with his right hand as well, and his divine energy surged like a tide, making him seem like a god of war. Streaks of divine light flowed behind him. A broken halberd appeared before him, and the illusion of a huge cauldron rapidly condensed by his right hand before suppressing him within. The huge cauldron bobbed up and down, seeming real and illusory, as if it had existed since ancient times. It was ancient and heavy. Rumble. Countless killing formations instantly fell, converging around Longchen, and fiercely bombarding the illusion of the huge cauldron. Under everyone's gaze, a blinding light covered the sky, and the entire world seemed to have lost its color at this moment. The patrolling God King stared at Longchen, and seemed to be rather satisfied with this attack. The people of Baiyishan felt their hearts rise to their throats as they stared at the resplendent light in the sky. Chapter 1023. Longchen was surrounded by an illusory cauldron. Wherever he passed, the terrifying Tao patterns of the patrolling statues were all suppressed. Under everyone's gaze, Longchen destroyed the terrifying spear with a single punch. The violent and direct attack caused everyone's blood to boil. A mid-stage God King had destroyed a late-stage God King's terrifying attack with a single punch. He had even ignored the patrolling statue's boundless killing array. The patrolling God King felt an unprecedented humiliation. He did not say much. His right hand started to carve Tao patterns in the air. The Tao patterns condensed and turned into ancient characters in the air. Go! The patrolling godly monarch bellowed. The ancient characters flew out and landed on the patrolling statues. The patrolling statues emitted boundless divine light that shot into the sky. All kinds of weapons were formed. Longchen's footsteps suddenly paused as he frowned slightly. The weapons looked like they were formed by the power of the array. However, under the observation of the Emperor Lord's remnant soul, he realized that there were thousands of Tao patterns on each of the weapons. They were filled with boundless killing intent. Although the patrolling God King was only at the peak of the 7th stage of the God King realm, he was not afraid of someone like Yao Yiji, who was destined to become a late-stage God King. The weapons slashed toward Longchen. Every single one of them had the power to split heaven and earth. For a moment, Longchen was also suppressed, unable to move an inch. Star Attraction Primal Chaos Mantra. Longchen snorted. The origin of his god power surged out like thousands of rays of light. He unleashed his inherited soul skill. As far as the eye could see, countless stars fell from the sky and landed on the patrolling statues. At the same time, Longchen's right hand was dripping with blood. He was carving Tao patterns in the air. Everyone who saw this scene felt inexplicably strange. The patrolling God King was from the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. He was very familiar with arrayed Tao patterns. No one thought that Longchen would use arrayed Tao patterns to counterattack. The Tao patterns condensed into a silver light that stood on Longchen's fingertip. Longchen used his inherited soul skill to charge toward the patrolling statues. Rumble. The silver light disappeared into the patrolling statues. Under everyone's gaze, the patrolling statues started to crack at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, they exploded with blinding light. Longchen rushed out of the patrolling statues area at the same time. Under the patrolling God King's control, the patrolling statue's power was like the difference between heaven and earth and the one at the Blood Moon Well. These few drops of Longchen's blood contained the Sovereign Master's source energy, which was why they were able to shatter it. The patrolling Divine King's expression changed when he saw this. He never thought that Longchen would be able to break through the encirclement of the patrolling divine statues so easily. He immediately executed the array formation Tao pattern and once again guided the patrolling divine statue to suppress Longchen. Longchen snorted coldly and released his divine power. An azure shadow instantly descended on the patrolling Divine King. The patrolling Divine King's pupils suddenly shrank as he cried out involuntarily, "You actually possess a visualization technique of such a level." That being said, the patrolling God King was very experienced in battle. he did not hesitate and used his visualization technique. A mighty disk array appeared and fell from the 9 heavens towards the azure shadow. However, as they went back and forth, the patrolling divine statue was left far behind by Long Chen. Rumble. Long Chen rushed forward. Under everyone's gazes, he rushed within 1,000 meters of the patrolling God King. Endless divine power bombarded the patrolling statues. The two of them started to fight at close range. Countless people stared at Long Chen in shock. A mid-stage God King was fighting a late-stage God King, and he was not at a disadvantage. The patrolling God King's expression was unprecedentedly serious. He finally knew why Yao Yiji valued Long Chen so much and wanted to get rid of him. Although Long Chen came from the North Foot realm, his inherited techniques and visualization techniques were not weaker than any member of the Tianyuan divine clan. With such battle prowess, he could shoulder the fate of any clan and have the chance to become a god emperor. The two of them moved faster and faster. Their vast divine power shook the heavens and earth, and they moved 10,000 miles. The terrifying might forced the God Kings of various forces to retreat. No one expected Long Chen, a mid-stage God King, to be able to fight the patrolling God King, a late-stage God King, to a standstill. Divine light soared into the sky and chasms covered the earth. The two of them fought for hundreds of thousands of miles, causing mountains and rivers to collapse. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Only then did the divine light show signs of dissipating. At this moment, the two of them returned to the sky above the people of Baishan. Puchi! Blood gushed out of the patrolling God King's mouth. The terrifying wounds on his body could not be healed. There was a huge cauldron above his head. On the other side, behind Long Chen, the patrolling statues collapsed and fell to the ground. There was no longer any trace of profound aura. The patrolling divine king's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Long Chen. He roared, "What the hell is this giant cauldron phantom? It actually has such a terrifying suppressive power that it can even suppress my divine soul source." Long Chen did not reply. He just stared coldly at the patrolling God King. He forced the patrolling God King back here so that he could die in front of the countless eyes of the people of Baishan. He wanted Bai Yexing to see the patrolling God King die in front of him. At this moment, other than the patrolling God King's voice, there was no other sound. Although the God Kings of various forces were still watching from afar, they were extremely silent. Long Chen actually won. A 6th-stage God King defeated a late-stage God King with a patrolling statue. The patrolling God King was from the Zhuge Jinshan clan, a true Tianyuan divine clan. On the other hand, Long Chen was just a nobody from the North Foot realm. "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!" Among the God Clan forces in the distance, someone shouted angrily. His voice was filled with resentment. As soon as the voice fell, more and more people started shouting. They all hoped that Long Chen would kill the patrolling God King. When Long Chen heard the countless shouts, he wasn't surprised at all. The patrolling God King used the 5 array flags to steal the divine souls of the various God clans. It was no different from shaking their foundation. These God clans were angry but did not dare to voice it out. Long Chen stared at the patrolling God King and said coldly, "Looks like I'm not the only one who wants you dead." Seeing this, the patrolling God King suddenly laughed and shouted, "Are you still not going to attack? Do you really want him to kill me?" The patrolling God King was very familiar with the Forbidden God Swamp. He knew that 3 God King experts had followed him through the Forbidden God Swamp. If Long Chen did not have the protection of the Sovereign Lord's remnant soul, he would not have been able to hide for so long. His roar reverberated, but Long Chen's figure moved and directly charged in front of him. Boundless divine power instantly shredded the Divine King patrolling formation's body and divine soul. Chapter 1024. The patrolling Divine King had died. Long Chen's words before his death caused everyone to look at each other in dismay. Only after looking around did he raise his head to look at the sky. 3 rays of divine light descended from the sky. Each of them was brimming with divine energy. They were all at the peak of the 6th level of the Divine King realm. The 3 of them stared at Longchen in shock. They said, "I thought we wouldn't have to do anything after the patrolling Divine King killed you. I didn't expect him to be so useless. It's good that he's dead. This way, Zhuge Ziyin won't be able to say anything after we kill you." The 3 of them were calm as if they were determined to kill Longchen. They didn't care about the patrolling Divine King's life at all. The people around them were confused. Longchen had killed the patrolling Divine King in the late stage of the Divine King realm. The 3 of them were only at the 6th level of the Divine King realm. Why were they so confident? Longchen narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Then I'd like to see what you're capable of." When Longchen fought with the patrolling Divine King, they had crossed quite a distance. The Emperor Lord's remnant soul had already noticed the 3 of them hiding in the patterns. Because of this, Longchen didn't use his full strength to kill the patrolling Divine King. Longchen was at the peak of the 6th level of the Divine King realm. After breaking through the patrolling Divine statue, it wasn't difficult for him to kill the patrolling Divine King who was at the 7th level of the Divine King realm. He was waiting for the 3 of them in front of him. When the 3 of them heard Longchen's words, they snorted and didn't bother to say anything else. An edict that was covered in black gas appeared in each of their hands. The edicts were only the size of a palm. However, the purplish gold patterns on them made one's mind tremble. Hiss! The moment the 3 edicts appeared, the expressions of the spectators changed. They shouted, "Xian Tian Edict! It seems like the Forbidden God tribe is going to kill him. The patrolling Divine King is still a member of the Forbidden God tribe. Longchen will die in the end." No wonder the 3 of them didn't make a move. They were already confident. Xian Tian Imperial Decree. It was the Zhuge Jinshan clan's special artifact that was famous in the Grotto Heavens. None of them had thought that the 3 mid-god kings would possess great treasures, and there were 3 of them. Rise! The 3 Xiantian edicts rose with the wind as the 3 of them roared, and purple-gold divine lightning converged around them. Sizzle! Longchen didn't even have the chance to react before he was engulfed by the divine lightning. Bolts of divine lightning pierced through his body, crushing his flesh and blood. What a terrifying power! Longchen's entire body shook violently, and his body was about to be completely shattered in an instant. The Xiantian edict had indeed exceeded his expectations. Such terrifying power was probably enough for the 3 of them to instantly kill a patrolling God King level expert. Legacy technique, Chaos Ascending Dragon Path. Longchen's body was suddenly surrounded by tens of thousands of dragon shadows. It was as if he had transformed into a giant god. Behind him, divine light filled the sky. Light and shadow intertwined, and it was as if there were 10 dragon souls circling around him. The terrifying scene made one feel an urge to kneel down. Rumble! Divine light surged, and as the dragon souls intertwined, Longchen grabbed the 3 god kings with his right hand. The 3 of them didn't even have time to react before their bodies shattered. The surroundings became extremely quiet once again. No one had thought that such a solemn start would end so carelessly. However, they had seen through it. Compared to the 3 of them, Longchen was clearly prepared for this. Longchen was still like a giant god. The aura around him didn't fade at all, and the dragon shadows intertwined in the sky. He looked at his body that was riddled with holes, and his heart palpitated slightly. If it weren't for the fact that his body was different from that of an ordinary person, and that he had an Imperial Lord's origin, his body would probably have been shattered. This battle seemed short, but it was actually extremely dangerous. The Imperial Lord's remnant soul had given him the second legacy technique at the right time. Otherwise, it would have been another fierce battle. Swish! Swish! 3 sounds pierced through the air, and the purple-gold divine lightning around Longchen's body burst out of his body. The 3 Xiantian edicts fell straight into his hands. Hot. Extremely hot. Black smoke rose from Longchen's right hand. The Xintian edicts seemed to only belong to the Zhuge Jinshan clan. Pa pa pa. Under everyone's gaze, the 3 edicts were crushed in Long Chen's right hand. Countless purple gold divine lightning roared, but they couldn't move at all. Long Chen stared at the divine king in his hand, then glanced at the edicts in his hand, and said, "Do you want to live or die?" This question was very simple. The 3 of them answered very straightforwardly, and nodded their heads. They weren't stupid enough to threaten Long Chen with the status of the Zhuge Jinshan clan. The patrolling divine king's soul had just turned cold, and they didn't want to follow in his footsteps. Long Chen suddenly laughed. The 3 of them were smart. In reality, the 3 of them were shocked by Long Chen. Under the 3 Xintian edicts, his body didn't shatter, and he suppressed the 3 of them with a wave of his hand. This method was truly terrifying. "Where is Zhuge Ziyun?" Long Chen was very direct. "The Zhuge Jinshan clan, in the clan." The 3 of them didn't hesitate. Long Chen nodded, and said, "I want you to control the 3 Xintian edicts for me, and break into the Zhuge Jinshan clan." Although the 3 of them were smart, they didn't react in time. "You want the 3 of us to break into my clan with the edicts?" Long Chen nodded, and snorted, "Is there a problem?" The 3 of them quickly shook their heads, and then quickly agreed. This was simply courting death. The dragon shadow around Long Chen didn't dissipate, and it seemed like he wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Before they moved, the protective formation of the people of Baiyishan suddenly disappeared, and the people of Baiyishan knelt on the ground and bowed to Long Chen. Puff puff puff. The people of the various clans did the same. Long Chen was shocked when he saw that, and he bowed in all directions to return the greeting. "Are you really going to the Zhuge Jinshan clan?" Bai Yexing's voice was extremely weak, but he still sounded worried. "This time, bam." Before Long Chen could finish his words, Bai Yexing fell to the ground, and his fleshly body and divine soul dissipated at the same time, turning into specks of light that filled the sky. "This time, I must seek justice." When Long Chen saw Bai Yexing's death and the disappearance of his essence, he was filled with anger. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Long Chen flew straight toward the forbidden God Water Marsh with the 3 souls of God Kings. Inside the people of Baiyishan, the immeasurable sovereign and Zhuzang Duzuan looked at each other and followed closely behind. The immeasurable sovereign gave a cold snort and said, "Zhuge Ziyun, it's been several years since the 3-month deadline, but your savior has almost died. It's time for you to show your face." Chapter 1025. The Zhuge Forbidden God Clan. Zhuge Ziyun stood in a very dark room. He was at a loss. The Zhuge Forbidden God Clan and the Ghost Python Clan were not enemies, but they were not friends either. He had once left the central province and met Yao Yiji. The 2 of them had fought because of a disagreement. Yao Yiji chased him all the way to the North Foot territory and almost killed him. When the Ghost Python clan was born, Long Chen had saved his life. In the following month, he had planned to return to the Forbidden God clan to resolve his grudge with Yao Yiji, then return to the North Foot territory to repay Long Chen. But he did not return. In 2 months, he had completely fallen in love with this woman. He did not even know why this happened. As the young master of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan, Zhuge Ziyun had outstanding talent and carried the fate of the clan. He had seen all kinds of women. But for the first time, he had truly fallen in love with this woman. There was no sign, no reason. This woman, who had almost killed him, had met him almost every day for the past 2 months during the 2-legged negotiation. Love, when did it appear? He did not know. Love did not know where it came from. Thinking of this, Zhuge Ziyun could not help but smile bitterly. He had long forgotten about the 3-month agreement. He only remembered that he owed Long Chen 3 things. These 3 things made Yao Yiji want to kill Long Chen. Zhuge Ziyun did not want to quarrel with Yao Yiji over this matter. Although his words were tough, he wanted to go back on his words. Otherwise, how many people could stop him, the young master of a Grotto Heaven clan? Unfortunately, he had never expected that Long Chen would come to the central province from the North Foot territory in just a few years. A sovereign venerable had become a divine king in the blink of an eye. Creak. While Zhuge Ziyun was lost in thought, a thread of white light gradually appeared in the dark room. Then, the room was completely illuminated by sunlight. Yao Yiji's cold and beautiful face was reflected in Zhuge Ziyun's eyes. Zhuge Ziyun was stunned. Perhaps it was this cold temperament that captured his heart? Yeji, I've already promised you that I'll ignore the undying Dao law. What are you still worried about? Zhuge Ziyun asked Yao Yeji. Yao Yiji's brows were tightly furrowed. For some reason, she felt somewhat uneasy. It had been close to 3 months since the patrolling God Kings and the 3 God Kings with the Xiantian edicts had returned. Yao Yiji walked to Zhuge Ziyun's side and leaned into his arms. However, there was a hint of gentleness in her eyes. She murmured, "Do you know why I almost killed you that day?" Zhuge Ziyun shook his head. Yao Yeji continued, "You're too soft-hearted, but you're not stupid. You should know what I'm doing." Zhuge Ziyun smiled but didn't say anything. He just tightened his embrace and said, "You want to merge the Ghost Python clan and the Zhuge Jinshan clan into one, so you have to divide my clan. You made them misunderstand our relationship. Using my uncle's lineage is indeed a method." Zhuge Ziyun paused for a moment, while Yao Yiji remained silent. It was just as she said. Zhuge Ziyun wasn't stupid. These things couldn't escape his eyes. In fact, many people in the clan had already sensed it, but they were suppressed by Zhuge Ziyun. "I don't care about that, but you can't kill Long Chen." Zhuge Ziyun's voice became more certain. Yao Yeji shook her head and said, "It might already be too late. Your uncle's lineage has 3 people with the Xiantian edicts already headed to the other side of the Forbidden God Watermarsh." Boom! As soon as Yao Yeji finished speaking, Zhuge Ziyun's Dao runes shook and forced her back. Yao Yeji didn't intend to release divine light to counterattack. Instead, she continued, "This person has reached such a cultivation base in just a few years. If he wants to borrow your power, those 3 matters will threaten you and the entire Forbidden God clan." Rumble. As soon as Yao Yeji finished speaking, a deafening rumble came from outside the palace. The 2 of them looked at each other, then shot into the air and disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already 1,000 meters in the air. At the same time, many experts from the Zhuge Jinjin clan flew up into the sky. There were hundreds of divine kings among them. The strongest of these God King experts had even reached the peak of the late-stage God King realm, while the weakest had just stepped into the God King realm. As the auras of several hundred God Kings rose and fell, the air began to become chaotic. The vast power shook the surroundings. Below the God King level, there were countless sovereign auras rising and falling. Every God King expert could take in 100,000 sovereigns. Such a terrifying number was what created a grotto heaven force. Everyone's gaze gathered above the Forbidden God Watermarsh. The Forbidden God Watermarsh pierced through the Zhuge Forbidden God clan's 5-element formation palace from the inside out like a sharp sword. The Forbidden God Watermarsh was the clan's escape route. The countless formations inside were enough to block late-stage God King experts. Of course, Long Chen wasn't among them. Not to mention, he had the formation-breaking item that Elder Jean had given him. It was enough for him to pass through this place easily. The Forbidden God Watermarsh could reach the core of the Zhuge Forbidden God clan. It was a double-edged sword. Long Chen was using this double-edged sword. Otherwise, even if he had the battle strength of a late-stage God King, he would only die if he fought against a grotto heaven force alone. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Long Chen was surrounded by a towering dragon shadow. Behind him, divine light shot out like a waterfall. Bang! The moment Yao Yiji saw Long Chen, a dark light blasted Zhuge Ziyun, who was beside her. Zhuge Ziyun stared blankly at this scene. In the end, he took a deep look at Yao Yiji, sighed, and disappeared into the palace behind him. Longchen saw this scene with his sovereign lord's remnant soul. He couldn't help but raise his head and laugh. He saved someone's life in the past, but he betrayed them today. He didn't care what Zhuge Ziyun's reason was, or whether he had no choice. He only knew that he had saved Zhuge Ziyun's life with his own hands. The inextinguishable Dao law had weakened. Zhuge Ziyun had used the simplest way to avoid the oath. It wasn't easy to avoid it. Zhuge Ziyun, since I've come to your clan today, I want to see you and see if I can take back my life. Longchen roared. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and 3 God King souls were forcefully pressed onto the 3 Xiantian edicts. At this moment, he didn't care about the 3 dispensable promises Zhuge Ziyun had made. He needed an explanation. Bai Yexing's death and the endless pursuit during this period of time couldn't be forgotten just like this. One God King after another rushed toward Longchen, and in the blink of an eye, they were about to surround him. Rumble. Endless purple lightning fell from the Xiantian edicts. Longchen knew that even though he had come from the forbidden God Watermarsh, he didn't have much time left. At the same time, a huge cauldron appeared in Longchen's right hand. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.